All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you would please stand and join us for the invocation.
Please pray with me if you'd like to. Dear Lord, as we gather this evening, we ask for your steady guidance and clear wisdom. Grant this board the insight to approach each decision with compassion, fairness, and integrity. Help us work together with unity of purpose, keeping the well-being of our residents at the heart of all we do. Lord, bless those who serve this community, our employees, and all those who call St. Lucie home. Also, please keep the Port St. Lucie police officer that was injured in the line of duty last night in our prayers. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. I know I did. Did a little volunteering. I want to give a shout out while volunteering with the Big Heart Brigade. Saw our very own Jennifer Garrity out there wrapping meals on Thanksgiving morning with us. Over 1,700 meals packaged, wrapped, and ready to go in an hour and 40 minutes. So it was great to see everyone out there. And then if everyone would also just entertain me with a brief moment of silence. Most of you are probably aware that the other night a 27-year veteran with the Port St. Lucie Police Department was severely injured in the line of duty, Sergeant Eric Levasseur. So if we could just do a brief moment of silence for him and his family. All right, thank you. And with that, I need an approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no presentations. We'll move right into public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board, please come to the podium, provide your first and last name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, folks. I've reached out to most of the offices of the commissioners, and I want to introduce myself. My name is Roger Hudspeth. I'm the business representative for Sheet Metal Workers, Local Union 32. I was the chairman for the West Palm Beach Joint Apprenticeship Training Program when I came off 2006 to 2014, and then when we merged with Miami, I'm now one of the members of trustees on the board. We've had a great relationship over the past 15 years at the Green Collar Task Force. It's an incorporation we did with 8 building and construction trades. And our class, not quite sure where our next direction is, but I'm just going to let them come up and introduce themselves. I live at 130 Southwest South Wakefield Circle in Port St. Lucie, and Commissioner Leach, my commissioner. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jordan E. Elvius. I live at 1332 Southwest Honeycutt Avenue, Port St. Lucie, Florida. I'm an apprentice for the Local 32 Sheet Metal Union. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be a part of the professionals, to do it the right way. I'm not sure if we will be any longer to do it in St. Lucie County, which is like a big problem. But I put my faith that everything turns out good. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. My name is Kirby Metellus. I live at 1466 Southwest Hackensack Avenue, Port St. Lucie, Florida. And I'm also an apprentice for Local 32. And as well, we're grateful for everything that you guys can help us with. And it's like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roman Cortez. I'm from Palm Bay. My address is 260 on Taunton Road, and I thank you if you guys can help with anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Don Hernandez, and I'm from Okeechobee, Florida. My address is 302 Northwest 6th Street. Thank you for the opportunity y'all gave us in the apprenticeship. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Sanchez. My address is 17416 Broadman Lane, and we're really grateful for the opportunity to be able to be given here in St. Lucie County to take our classes here at the local union, and we appreciate everything that you guys do for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christopher Adams. I'm a recent transfer from Local 66 in Seattle. I recently moved down to Florida. I live in Palm Bay, and I'm really looking forward to finishing this program, seeing out my 4th year. And the commute is going to be really difficult for me living in Palm Bay if we have to transfer our school down to West Palm Beach. So I'd really like to see this through. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Glenn, Sr. I'm a first-year apprentice with Local 32. I appreciate any thing that you guys do to help us continue our learning. I live in Port St. Lucie, as a matter of fact, 217 East Arbor Avenue in Port St. Lucie, Florida. And it would be greatly appreciated if you all could help us continue our studies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Vernon Chambliss. I'm from Vero Beach, Florida. Address 333 24th Street, Southeast. I'm a first-year apprentice at the Local 32, and I would hate to lose the opportunity to get this free education and better myself in a career. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Daniel Briones. I live in 1508 Havana Avenue here in Fort Pierce. I've been here about 3 years. I've had a lot of different jobs, a lot of like day labor and things like that. And this is my first opportunity to have a real trade, a real career. And I would like to keep it here in St. Lucie County. I love the city and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello. My name is Keontae Berry. I live in Port St. Lucie, 2241 Southeast Shelter Drive. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity to learn this trade and also work while learning the trade. And it also would put me in a bad place if I had to drive to West Palm Beach as well. I have 3 children, and being here in the county makes it a lot easier for me, and the rest of the guys as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Basson. Sorry, guys, I talk a lot of emotion. So, I'm a 3rd-year apprentice. I live at 648 Southeast Lake Falls Street in Port St. Lucie. So 2.5 years ago, I had a dead-end job. I was cutting trees for $17 an hour. I had a baby on the way. I had no insurance, and nothing. And if it wasn't for this program right here, I wouldn't have been able to be where I'm at right now. I'm now earning journeyman's wages. I have 4 certifications in testing, adjusting, and balancing. I have a certification in fire and smoke damper technician and a supervisor, and indoor air quality. And I'm looking forward to continuing my career. This is a career, and I really enjoy it, and I should have a future, and it makes me feel like a productive person of society. So, if you guys can help, I live here in this town too, and I want to see myself as well as all my peers, succeed. So, thank you guys for hearing me.
Thank you.
My name is Corey Brown. I live at 2925 Southeast Ironton Avenue in Port St. Lucie. I'm a first-year apprentice. I have a family member that's in the Local 32 that's been doing it for a long time and brought me into it. It's a real family, a real brotherhood. We all look out for each other. I've been a resident of St. Lucie County. I've been living in Port St. Lucie for about 30 years. So I've been doing a lot of construction around Port St. Lucie, the city, and the county for many years. The union is something that I look forward to. it's close to us. We're able to make it an easier commute than in West Palm. I'm not exactly sure about all the business part of the situation as far as the building and things like that. But I know it would benefit us if we can stay there in that particular building. It would benefit the city too, because everybody knows like a lot of the trades are dying now. AI is taking over a lot of things. So for us to be able to have a location, it can even bring more people into the city. The city is growing, so we really need our location and we need the union. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Gene Schmeiler. I live in Vero Beach at 8775 20th Street. I am a sheet metal worker. I've been a sheet metal worker since 1994. Currently, I'm their teacher. This is my second year. Because of the close proximity, I'm able to do it at night, and I'm able to get a couple nights in and teach them. It's needed in this area for them, and I'm able to do it because of how close I live. So if you could please take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still under public comment. Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Seeing no movement, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Roger, I look forward to seeing you this Thursday at 10 o'clock. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Madam Chair, I would just like to also
Commissioner
recognize,
Townsend.
if I could, Sean Mitchell, who is retired union, and he is also in the audience representing Boys and Girls Club, but he was also part of your union for many years. Thank you.
Absolutely.
President of the union.
All right. There are no proclamations. So going right into approval of the 7 sets of minutes. Is there a motion? We
Move
have
approval.
Second.
a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair, sorry to
Commissioner
interrupt.
Landry?
Before you jump into consent, if I could ask the board to consider, when you go to move on consent, if you could take item A2 that's listed on the agenda and poll whoever is going to move forward with consent, would consider polling that for a separate vote based on the fact that we have a board member that sits on that board. So if that would be something that the board would consider.
Absolutely. Okay, so when we go to make a motion, I'll need someone to separate 9A2 out for a
It'll just
separate
be a
vote.
separate vote.
And for people in the audience or watching, reason being for that is I am a board member of the Boys and Girls Club, and so that it was a completely unbiased and fair vote, I recused myself from it so that there was no conflicts. Really quick, I do want to point out 9A1. We have created a DOJ resolution, which sort of goes hand in hand with what this board has been preaching about and wanting to further provide and show our commitment to accountability and transparency to the residents of this county. Furthermore, I believe at least 2 of us on this board have asked our Chief Financial Officer, Blaise Ngolia. He has officially been invited by at least 2 of us to come here. I can tell you, he said we will be waiting a while because we are low on the radar. So I can tell you that is a good thing that we are not in their spotlight. So just wanted to point that out. Commissioner Townsend, I'll let you point out your normals. I do just want to also point out L9L2, which is going to be the much needed and much awaited missing sidewalk gap on St. James Drive from Royce Avenue to Lazy River Parkway, which is also funded by the infrastructure sales tax. Commissioner Townsend, did you want to?
I can point out St. James, the pedestrian walkway. We like to let the public be aware where your tax dollars work, and that is going to be funded by the half% sales tax, which I want to remind everybody is coming up. It is going to be sunsetting, and so this is where those tax dollars went. If you go back and look at the roads and sidewalks that 0.5% has provided, it has been tremendous amount of money that ordinarily our budget would have never accounted to be able to have those done. And on 10L7, that is money left over from COVID. It's a part of the American Rescue, and that is the Sheraton Stormwater Treatment Area. The prior District 1 Commissioner Zadowski worked really hard on fighting for that, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that our Commissioner Clasby, you've met with them on several occasions too, because they're very, very strong. They come in, they meet, and they're a voice to reckon with. So that has finally come into fruition, and that is being funded by, again, the American Rescue Plan. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone, any comments from any other commissioners? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make sure we pull item A2 for separate vote.
Okay. So I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, pulling out 9A2 for a separate vote. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so now coming back to 9A2, is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve A2.
Second.
And there's a second. Madam Chair, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Laurie,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Townsend,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Lee,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clasby,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Fowler.
I'll be recusing
Oh, she
myself.
recused herself.
All right. And just like that, we're under public hearings. And we have Barb Getler for our Culver MSBU program, which is an amazing program. Mr. Townsend, do you want to start the plug as she sits down?
Don't want to what?
For the Culvert Assistance Program, you want to?
I'm happy to do that because that's one of my proudest moments.
I know,
I've
and
just
it's a
been
great
elected.
program.
For those of you that don't know that you can't afford to have your culverts done, we have a program that we finance it, we help you do it, and it goes on your taxes over a period of 10 to 20 years. Barb's going to get into this, I'm sure, and tell you all about it. And it amazes me, for as long as this has been going on now, that there's still people that don't know about it. But every time it comes up and every time it's brought up, I know that there's usually 2 to 3 more people that end up calling. So it's great that it's constantly being brought up. And Barb does a good job. I do want to say she's a one-man show, and I think she does a lot with a little. And so I appreciate all the work you put into this, because I know there was a lot of work that had to go into it to create it from the beginning. And so I thank you for that.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, for the record, Barbara Getler, MSB Coordinator. I do want to point out that Water Quality and Public Works is right behind me on this, so I'm going to give them a little credit.
You're the one that does the run to make sure it gets on the tax roll, though.
Yes. The board created the Culvert Assistance Program to give property owners the option to fund the replacement of failed culverts through non-ad valorem assessments. Today's resolution is assessment resolution as required by county ordinance. The purpose of this resolution relates to the imposition and collection of special assessments to fund stormwater culvert improvements within the MSBU, determine that real property therein will be specially benefited, establish the method of assessing the cost of the improvements, and approve the assessment roll. Staff recommends board approval of resolution number 2025-223 and authorization for the chair to sign documents as approved by the county attorney.
All right, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the board on this item? Seeing no movement, close public comment, come back to the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Barb. All right, I'm going into County Attorney for Bednar Farms.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, for the record, Catherine Barbieri, Interim County Attorney. For what you have before you is the Ordinance 2522, Bednar Farms Community Development District name change request. Council is requesting on behalf of Bednar Farm CDD that the community amend the ordinance to change the district's name from Bednar Farm Community Development District to the Groves of St. Lucie County Community Development District. It has been properly noticed. This is a public hearing, and staff is recommending approval for the name change.
All right, any questions, the board? I'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board? Seeing no movement, close public comment, come back to the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, for the record, Catherine Barbieri, Interim County Attorney. This is the final hearing, second hearing on Ordinance 2524, amending the St. Lucie County Land Development Code, Section 71030, reasonable accommodation procedures to provide procedures for review and approval of certified recovery residences. In the 2025 legislative session, the legislature passed an act relating to certified recovery residences. This new legislation required us by January 1 of 2026 to adopt an ordinance establishing procedures for review and approval of the certified recovery residents within our jurisdictions. We already had a procedure for reasonable accommodation for rehab, so we have added that to it in the Land Development Code. This is the second of 2 required public hearings. It has been properly noticed, and staff is recommending approval.
All right, thank you. I'll open this up to public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on this item? Seeing no movement, we'll close public comment, come back to the board.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, last one.
Madam Chair, again, for the record, Catherine Barbieri, Interim County Attorney and Commissioners. This is the final reading on an ordinance amending the text of the Land Development Code to clarify vegetation removal permit. In this regard, we have a draft ordinance which, if adopted, would provide clarification on the removal of native vegetation for the construction of any non-site related roadway extensions or expansions identified in the County Right-of-Way Protection Plan or Junction Road Area Plan and prescribed by site plan approval, site development permit, or roadway improvement, and provide the roadway would be dedicated to and is agreed to and accepted by St. Lucie County for perpetual ownership. This ordinance will change the Land Development Code to allow that to happen. This is the second of 2 required public hearings. It has been properly noticed, and staff is recommending approval.
All right. Once again, I'm going to open this up to public comment as it is a public hearing. Seeing no movement, I'm going to close public comment and come back to the board. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, and we're going to go into Planning and Development Services with Keene Road up first. Good evening, Corey.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. We have Don Arellano here, Planner 2 with our team to present item 10C1 for proposed rezoning on the west side of Keene Road, south of St. Lucie Boulevard.
Good evening, Chair Fowler and members of the Board of County Commissioners. For the record, my name is Don Ariano, planner with the Planning and Development Services Department. The applicant is proposing to amend the zoning atlas from AG1 Agricultural 1 to IL Industrial Light. Public notice has been provided in the form of a single-sided sign posted along the western Keene Road right-of-way. An ad has been published in the Tribune and an informational mailer sent to neighbors within 500 feet of the boundary of the property. The 10-acre property is located on the west side of Keene Road, approximately 1/10 of a mile south of St. Lucie Boulevard. The property is within the urban services boundary and the airport overlay. The existing future land use is TVC, Towns, Villages, and Countryside. Properties immediately surrounding include dedicated right-of-way, an existing conservation easement to the east, and lands designated with future land use TVC, Towns, Villages, Countryside to the west, industrial to the east, and mixed use to the north. The current zoning for the 10-acre parcel is AG1 Agricultural 1. The surrounding properties have the AG1 Agricultural 1 just south of the subject site, IL Industrial Light to the east, CG Commercial General, and IL Industrial Light to the west, and a mix of CN Commercial Neighborhood and AR1 excuse me, Residential and IL Industrial Light and RV Park to the northeast. The proposed zoning is light industrial. The purpose of this district is to provide and protect an environment suitable for light manufacturing, wholesale, warehouse activities that do not impose undesirable noise, vibration, odor, dust, or other offensive effects on the surrounding area, together with such other uses as may be necessary to and compatible with light industrial surroundings. The site has access to water and sewer connections to the north. It is not located within 500 feet of wetlands deemed Category 1 or any other specially designated aquatic habitat. It does have access to the regional transportation network, and there is not anticipated degradation of superficial water quality. The Environmental Resources Department's final report determined that the neighboring wetland to the east to be a Category 2 wetland based on the information received during the review process of this application. The emergent wetland is isolated remnants of an excavation activity with no connection to immediate flowways or stormwater features. The Planning and Zoning Commission at their October 16th meeting passed unanimous approval or recommendation for approval, and the petition conforms to the standards of review as set forth in Section 110603 of the St. Lucie County Land Development Code and is consistent with St. Lucie County Comprehensive Plan goals and objective policies. Staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners approve the amendment to the zoning on the subject site from AG1 Agricultural 1 to IL Industrial Light.
All set?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, before we get into it, this is quasi judicial, so I'm going to go ahead and ask for our disclosures. Commissioner Townsend?
Just staff.
Staff.
I'm also staff.
Staff as well.
Met with staff.
Okay,
Madam Chair, can I ask Corey a question? please?
absolutely.
Not that this matters, because I know that we're just doing a zoning change tonight, but do you know what the applicant is looking to put onto this piece? Because I'm receiving a lot of phone calls on this parcel.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Commissioner Townsend. Staff has had multiple conversations with the applicant. At this time, they have not presented any intended use or development plans for the site. We have property due north in the commercial neighborhood zone that we've garnered a few different concept plans for via pre-application request, anywhere from an RV park to a campground to even a live local proposal, again, for the site to the north. But this particular site, we have not had anything recent.
Okay.
Another parcel further south on Keene Road, at one point, there was an aviation-related company that would purchase damaged or defunct derelict planes. They would, refine them and then basically wholesale those parts. But that was a couple years ago.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Any other questions of the board right now, staff? Does the applicant, are they here? Do they have a presentation or anything they want to say?
I'm sure they do not have a presentation.
Okay. I have a question, Corey. What are some of the activities allowed under light industrial?
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, the Industrial Light District allows for an array of light industrial services, wholesale, distribution, manufacturing. The purpose statement and then the associated uses look to allow for some intensity but avoid significant noise, dust, odor, or off-site externalities or impacts. Some of those uses could be a wholesale distribution of manufactured parts. It could be a truss manufacturing facility, manufacturing of boats as we see along the St. Lucie Boulevard corridor. It could be other niche manufacturing or fabrication that we see in the Airport Industrial Park, which is also industrial light, where we have folks welding T-tops, making custom parts, upholstery, fabric, even some light hardware formation. So it's rather broad, but again, it tries to put a curb on some of the potential off-site impacts. But definitely you would see distributions and truck-related traffic, potentially could be high intensity for employees.
So that's sort of where I was getting to, is typically anything under the light industrial, you're going to have some sort of commercial truck traffic coming in, whether it's delivering parts, materials, delivering them, whatever the case may be. Let's talk about Keene Road. And I see Patrick back there. Patrick, would you mind coming up here so we can talk about the current conditions of Keene Road and whether there's any plans in the future, like in our 5-year CIP, to do anything with Keene Road? Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Patrick Diane, Public Works Director, for the record. We'd have to do a little bit more research. I'm not aware, off top of mind, of any CIP projects for expansion along Keene Road. We will have to look back and see if there's any resurfacing plan, but it would not change the dimensions or the capacity of Keene Road as it stands.
Okay. Is it full, as far as the lanes of traffic, is it DOT? Does it meet the DOT requirements for commercial traffic?
Madam Chair and members of the commission. I'd have to do some research to get back to you
Okay.
explicitly on that to make sure that we do meet those 12-foot wide lanes, which I think is what you're referring to.
Yes, sir.
Yes, let me do
Okay.
some research. I can get back to this board on that.
Okay. So first off, I think all of us up here are staunch advocates of property rights. We understand people buy a piece of property and they have a right to develop it. However, what we're being asked to do with this rezone is just give a blanket rezone without knowing what's going there. And now 3 years on the board, I've seen enough issues pop up that I have inherited, specifically my St. Lucie Gardens neighborhood. It's a nightmare. So that being said, I am not very eager to jump in and do a rezone without knowing what we're rezoning it to. I think it is reasonable expectation if someone's going to come in and change a piece of property and go to its future land use, we should know what they're doing with it. I do think it's reasonable so that we and our team can properly plan for the expected impacts. And I get that it can be done in the next step, but again, all of us have been up here long enough to know if that next step doesn't happen for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you have another board, you have a new team, and 3 votes is all it takes to change whatever we approve tonight or don't approve, if you will. So some of the things going through the report, I feel, under the standards of review, that it doesn't conform to policy 1.1.13.1, which is that we'll actively assist to maximize the extent practical in the recruitment of clean, high-growth industrial activities. Well, we don't know what activities are being proposed, so we can't say whether that's criteria has been met. 1.1.13.6, the county shall support the expansion and recruitment of specialized and or export-oriented manufacturing industries. Again, nothing is being proposed. We can't answer that, so that has not been met. Right now, I got with planning, and currently, without rezoning this piece of property, there's about 3,600 acres of industrial property available for development currently. Again, looking at the report under page 7 for criteria letter D, whether there have been change conditions that require an amendment. One second. So again, under D, we are just reconfirming that they are looking to come in to do a rezone just to get an up, just to get the future land use. That's not a good reason to do a rezone. Page 8, letter E, same thing. We can't say without knowing what's being proposed whether the extent to which the amendment would result in a demand on public facilities and everything there that follows. And then G, whether and the extent to which the proposed amendment would adversely affect the property values in the area. We cannot answer any of these questions without knowing what is being proposed. I am all for economic development and more jobs. It makes sense where it sits that it would be industrial, but again, I am tired of giving blanket approvals and not knowing what we're getting into. That is not smart growth, and that's what we all talk about. For me, that's just not smart growth. So for those reasons, I personally would not be able to support this tonight without having a rezone and knowing exactly what's going in there. So.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Clasby?
Wait, did we have the public hearing yet?
Not yet. We're still, the
Okay.
board is having comments. I'll make sure to open it to
Okay,
public.
but you had asked the lane widths there, and we're looking at an image. Is that Keene Road we're seeing there?
That is correct, Commissioner Clasby.
And
This is due east of the property. Again, I can't say with precision, but it's estimated to be around 19.5 to 20 feet in width, depending upon the edge of asphalt lines on the roadway.
So, I mean, that's, from the evidence we have presented before us, it looks like it's not 12-foot lanes. So I would agree with Commissioner Fowler's line of thought here.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Clasby, forgive my interruption. While you were having this discussion, I was able to pull in some of the inventory data that we had from our pavement management assessment. Keene Road from Angle Road to St. Lucie Boulevard is a collector road. It is an asphalt surface. The lane width is 20 feet total, so you have 10-foot travel lanes. So to the effect that Corey was doing some measurement quickly on the aerial, it seems pretty accurate. We have 10-foot travel lanes out there.
Okay. You know, that along with the fact that we know really just right in that same vicinity, right, you have Eagle Bend, you have that big residential community. Again, without knowing what we're getting into, it's very hard for us to be able to properly plan and make sure that we're not putting big semi trucks through residential neighborhoods and things of that nature. So that's where I'm at. Any other comments or?
I mean, I'll make a comment. I agree with you, but then I disagree with you. The reason why I disagree with you is because where this is positioned is around the airport. And even though we know that the airport's not going to be at Palm Beach in our lifetime, but it's up to us because we're beginning that, right? And this is positioned on a road that is going to be going to our airport. When Jenkins goes all the way through to Midway, that's going to be a main road to the airport. And so this would begin something with getting a road and getting the industry, light industry in there, because you're going to need those areas around there to be that, to promote the small businesses the airport's going to spew off of. Now, the part for me, Commissioner Fowler, that makes me okay is, because I have concerns about what would go in there. I would rather know what's going in there to make this decision versus just doing it as a blanket. But if you look at the uses, well, we know it's not going to be a marina or commercial fishing or anything like that, but we will have the opportunity to approve what's going to go there, number one. And if something's going to go in there that's going to be a high impact, then we can say, well, you're going to widen the road. What you're going to do is you're going to trigger this. Where's the turn lane? You're going to widen it. We know we're going to want 12-foot minimum, right? If we want 15 foot, because we're planning for the future, we can say, you know what, you can go in here, but we want to plan for the airport, and you're going to be the beginning of that and impact it. So we want you to double the road size. We want you to give us 20, right? And that's where we can come after them to do that on Keene Road. It's not ag anymore. I mean, it was for a long time. We know it's not anymore. I do have concerns about the residents that are on that street, but again, I think by the time this would be impacted by that, they're probably no longer going to be there. So I'm comfortable making this decision to take it to light industrial only because I know that if there's going to be an impact on that road, it's going to be at a cost. They will pay the cost. We will not be paying that cost. And it is the beginning of showing that if we're going to move forward with our airport, that we are beginning to have the conversations with anybody that wants to come around it and it's going to make change. You're going to be responsible. And this is the beginning of changing the infrastructure to prepare us for the roadway, because we know St. Lucie Boulevard is going to be the main road coming and going from the airport. So for that reason, I'm okay with the zoning change. Like I said, knowing also that if somebody's going to come in here while I'm sitting up on the board, I know I'm going to have a say in what's going to go there. And so for that comfort level, I'm okay, with making this change tonight.
Yeah, and I definitely don't disagree with anything that you said. It's just that, again, knowing that if it was the same five of us when the actual application for what's going to be done here came through, but we don't know that. And so we can't say what the next five of us are going to do or allow or not allow. So
we're making decisions on boards prior to us, though, right? And I don't expect to sit here and make a decision that, I would hope that leaving here, moving forward, any board member sitting in my chair is going to be proud of the decisions I made. And I am here to make it better for my children and my grandchildren moving forward. And I can tell you, in the time I've sat here, I have had to deal with things that past boards did not make good decisions on. I don't think that this board's really done a lot of that. I mean, I know that you and Commissioner Lee's been up here for 3, and you're getting ready to have a second term, but I think that it speaks volumes for the past year of what this board's done. We've taken a step back, right? We have been planning. We have been very strategic with the planning. We have slowed the growth, and we've been extremely mindful of every decision we've made. And so I look at it a little bit different, I guess, because I've been here longer, that I can't control who's going to be up here on this board 10 years from now, and that's okay. But I want that board to look back and say, I'm glad that the board in 2025, when they did this, now I have a say in what's going to go here, and they put that in place, and so it wasn't a bad decision. Look at the things you and I are having to do with our district that were bad decisions of prior boards that we're having to help create change for and change text amendments and stuff to get there. I don't think it's a disservice to change it to light industrial. And like I said, in my opinion, I do believe that moving the airport forward, it's showing that we are being mindful of what the zonings are going to be around there.
Correct.
And I don't think it's going to be a negative impact on us not knowing what's going there, because I have concerns. I mean, I have concerns about what's going to go there. And if something's going to go in the next 3 years while I'm sitting up here, I'm going to take a hard look at it. But I also want to know that there's a little company coming in because they see and have a future vision of what the airport's going to be, and they look at that piece and they want to go there and rent it. There's that opportunity, because it's 18 months to get to this point to begin with. I don't want somebody to have to come in here and say that would be a great piece of property, but it's ag. Okay, let me go on and look for something else and try to find something when it could have been a very good business. And more than likely on that size lot, it's going to be a small business. So for me, because I want to represent the small business, that's an opportunity for a small business. That's not going to be a franchise. That's not going to be a huge box store coming in. That's a little guy going to come in and do something that's going to do something with that airport. It's going to make a difference. It's going to live here, pay taxes here. So that's my comfort in all of this. I mean, it definitely it's the will of the board, and we'll go with whatever direction.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Cosby.
Before I go, what are we looking at here? What you guys put on the screen?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Clasby, members of the board, this exhibit shows a 2024 concept plan that was filed as a pre-application meeting. The application was inevitably filed for an RV park on the parcel to the north. So I was a little off as to my recollection of what was covered with this prior concept plan. But what's displayed is an RV park with more tribal type, camping and tent camping, more wilderness tent camping. But this concept plan encompassed both the 10-acre site that's subject to the current zoning petition, as well as 13 acres to the south. So it's much more expansive, did not move forward, and has been bifurcated via a land division since. So it's, again, just a concept plan. Somebody could have presented another airport here, in theory, as a pre-app.
And so, Madam Chair, Corey, with this, could you put up the surrounding land uses page? And while you're doing that, this project wasn't subject to the required for neighborhood meeting prior to this meeting, right?
Commissioner Clasby, the petition before you this evening was filed back in July and was not subject to the current public notice, or it was subject to the current public notice guidelines for public hearings, but not subject to the community meeting.
But even if it was proposed today, would it have been required because it's not going to MXD, it's not going
precisely,
to PUD?
It's an industrial light proposal, straight zoning, as opposed to planned development, or there's no conditional use.
So yes. Should we approve this change this evening, what are the safeguards moving forward that we can choose what goes there or doesn't go there? Because isn't it straight zoning after this, where they can just come in with a building permit?
Commissioner Clasby, it's very likely that on a 10-acre site, the scale of the proposed development would be at the minor site plan level. That allowance is quite substantial. If it's a targeted industry, it's even greater. So, for instance, a 100,000 square foot non-targeted industry proposal could be evaluated and approved at the staff level if it proposed manufacturing or another use aligning with our targeted industry allowances, it could in theory be up to 500,000 square feet. Again, that's without looking at traffic impacts, turn lanes, lot coverage, parking, storm water. I mean, it's hard to accumulate that size facility on 10 acres. But yes, to your point, it's probable that anything that's permitted by right within those categories or within those thresholds would not be back before the Board of County Commissioners unless there's wetlands on site or anything that would elevate it to a major site plan.
And actually, not future lanes, could you switch to zoning for the viewer looking at? And with that, if we were to go to light and industrial light, from the current Ag 1 zoning, when we talk about what could go there by right at that point, would Live Local Act be one of those things where they could put high-density housing in there? Is that possible?
Commissioner, that is possible. There are some provisions in Live Local related to proximity to the airport and some of the orientations of runways and noise cones. I don't believe that would influence this particular site in a manner that would limit it from being eligible for Live Local. So in theory, if it was eligible, they could pursue up to 15 dwelling units per acre across the 10-acre parcel.
Just as a request in the future, when we're getting rezonings and we get the potential uses that could go there, if Live Local is one of those potentials, I'd like that included. That maybe with some sort of asterisk, because that's important to know, because going from this Ag 1 to light industrial seems like a fairly reasonable thing. I mean, it was brought up that Keene Road seems substandard for light industrial, in my opinion, but I definitely wouldn't want to see at 15 units per acre townhouses being put there. So those things weigh in my mind, and I'm not sure it's appropriate at this time to make the change, but I'm just one person.
Certainly, Commissioner, and I believe in our report we did acknowledge the potential for Live Local. That was a conversation we had with our Planning and Zoning Commission as well. So definitely on staff's mind. Thank you for the feedback.
And one more thing, not that they're all the same property owners, but commercial general, commercial neighborhood are already eligible for Live Local 15 units. So, I mean, potentially if this property owner purchased all of those, they could make quite a large development there.
It's a possibility.
Okay.
Good point. Yes. All right. Is there any other discussion? If not,
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
I would
Lee.
like to just comment on Commissioner's Claspy's. That's what was going through my mind, is if we change this over to the light industrial, we've got the potential for additional housing, and of course, right next to the airport, I do not think that's a good idea. So I am not on the board of approving this tonight.
If there's, sorry, let me go ahead and back up a second. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the board on this item? Good evening.
Hello, my name is Anya Knapinska, and we are the petitioners for this land. And I just wanted to clarify, because there's so much confusion about this. Our ideas for the land is to have a small warehousing or parking. We have been approached by a developer who builds small warehousing, and with the airport being developed, and also with the area having more roads cutting through, we thought maybe the area could benefit from warehouses that would be small bays that would allow small business owners, like ourselves, to have storage facilities where they could distribute their toys or whatever they sell, or have bays where they could manufacture small things like upholster, couches or whatever. So really, our idea is for that. We don't have any plans. That's why we didn't come up earlier, because we don't have plans for it. But that's what our thoughts were for the land. We haven't really talked to any other industrial developers, but that was really the original plan for this.
All right.
Sure. So my recommendation would be, and I mean, Corey needs to back me up and make sure I'm saying this right, because of the concerns, this could come back, and you need to be more, I think, you need to have more conversations with them, and you need to find out what your use is going to be, and then this land use could be done in that night, but then on the next item, it would be for your site plan or plan of whatever you're going to do, and it can be done simultaneously at the same time versus doing this right now and it just being carte blanche. Just wait till you decide what you're going to do or who you're going to work with in doing it and doing them together, and it'll just be two separate items, but they can be done in the same night. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that we're open because we find it to be an obstacle when we approach when we talk to developers, they say, well, you have ag land, it's going to take forever, we don't really want to work with you. And Chair Fowler had a good point. There's so much industrial there, but unfortunately, they're either humongous parcels or they're highly overpriced, so we can't afford them. We're just a small family, so we wanted to grow, as business owners. And to Ms. Townsend's point is we cannot have anything there without your approval. So we have to come and go through the plans, and we have to change the plans. Everything has to be approved. So, there's nothing we can do on that land without your approval. And more housing, I think there's going to be a lot of housing in the area as well. So that's just not something we are interested in developing there. We heard the parcel just north of us, north of that is supposed to have housing. So, also there's not many storage areas for people to store their things in that area at all. It has been kind of overdeveloped more in Port St. Lucie, but in that area there's no storage. So that was really what we were aiming for. But it makes it very difficult for us to even raise money, raise investment money, and to approach developers with agricultural zoning.
And I understand that, and I think they do too. If you're approaching somebody to come in and partner with you, they don't want to partner with you and know that it's going to be a 2-year process
Exactly.
to get there. Where if you have the light industrial in place and you go to them, and they say, you have it, well then yes, let's partner, we'll put in storages like the Vault. Y'all remember the Vault up there on St. Lucie? Vault's done a great job. They're beautiful. And the people that there love them and want more, and there's no more land to do that. So he would probably partner with you. So I understand where you're coming from and what you need and why you need it. But I also understand the bigger picture that that's your intentions right now. But if somebody looking to the land next to you comes along and offers you a good penny, are you going to take it and whatever? You can say, no, because this is what you want to do. But then we have no way of knowing, and it being to the point that if it's a minor site plan, it doesn't come back to us, then that puts us to where we don't really have control to say no. That's the catch here.
You're unable to. Well, I just thought that you are always able to make a decision to whoever owns the parcel. So,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clasby.
So, Corey and planning staff, even if we were to move this forward and elevate it to a major site plan, we're still restricted as to what we would be able to disapprove, correct?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Clasby, and to Commissioner Townsend's point, if it's a permitted by right use, then the concerns or potential to reject the proposal relate to potential non-compliance of site plan standards of review or impacts on public facilities that exceed our code or comprehensive plan, but not the ability to reject a permitted by right use. The code under major site plans, there's a sub provision that allows a director to elevate a site plan proposal to the Board of County Commissioners if it's significantly impacting environmentally sensitive areas or has impacts on stormwater drainage, things that it's rarely elevated. But one recent example is 450 North Rock Road. You may recall the tractor trailer truck parking where they weren't actually proposing a building, but given the size and the scale, they could have parked 250 to 300 tractor trailers, a lot of traffic, a lot of high volume staff elevated that to a major site plan. So this body saw that it was a permitted by right use in the industrial light district, but we elevated it for the board to evaluate. You may recall this board imposed a condition of approval that required lengthening of that westbound to northbound right turn lane onto Rock Road from Orange Avenue. So those types of, that's an authority or latitude that the board has the ability to apply to major site plans. But rejecting the use, stating that the use itself is not permissible is a significant challenge if you have the zoning by right. I believe to Commissioner Townsend's point, one option, the site has a TVC land use designation. It's in the TVC overlay. One opportunity for non-residential uses is through the planned retail workplace, where you would couple the rezoning petition with a preliminary design plan that would identify access and typical lot types, potentially building scale. It would have landscape buffering and a lot more detail related to specific types of use. Now, it might not restrict it to a use or 3 uses, but it might categorize the ballpark. Is it commercial? Is it light industrial? Is it light industrial only within a building, or can it have only limited exterior storage areas or laydown areas for unfinished or finished products? So that would allow the board and the Planning and Zoning Commission a lot more scrutiny if the non-residential use was pursued via the planned retail workplace.
So that was going to be my next question is, you hear some of the concerns that we all have up here where we could get an unintended use, and I'm not a believer that, if it's ag now, it's ag forever, because this isn't super far west of town. This isn't an area where we're going to be developing the airport. It wasn't there before in the way that it's going to be. So, things will need to be able to be there. However, we need to have some protections on this board that it's actually going to be that and not, we rezone it and then a year later someone's offered a ton of money for it and that person then changes it to high density residential. I mean, it's not what your intent is, but it's still potentially an option. So I would like to see what options we have to help her moving forward that would give us some safeguards that doesn't happen. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like we would deny this and suggest that she comes back with a different rezoning category, whether it be planned non-residential or like the Buc-ee's one that you just said, the retail workplace. But with that, is that even something that you can speculatively rezone, right? Because you have to have an actual site plan and know what you're putting there for those. Is that correct?
Commissioner, so the board does have the options of rejecting the proposal this evening, citing any of the standards of review that you deem non-consistent or non-compliant. There's the option of tabling it or continuing it, allowing the applicant to consider preparing a site plan. Traditionally, that site plan wouldn't be before the Board of County Commissioners unless it's elevated to a major site plan, potentially considering the high vegetation across the property. There's quite a few cabbage palms. Although it's not hydrologically connected, there is the Category 2 wetland that we've identified on the other side of Keene Road. And given the condition of Keene Road that we talked about, it's paved, but it's approximately 20 feet in width. So maybe that, because of light industrial impacts on that roadway, that could justify elevating any site plan on the property to the level of a major site plan. So that's one option, or the other option is rejecting it with the guidance of considering a planned development, which would predominantly be the PRW within the TVC for this type of use. And they wouldn't necessarily have to have the full finalized plan like Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's came in with a very detailed plan. They knew what they wanted to build, the layout, the orientation, sidewalk, pedestrian movements, full landscape plan. The PRW does allow for you to set up access and set up lots, identify your open space, and have more flexibility as to uses, quite similar to a planned non-residential development, or the PNRD, which we rarely see in a TVC area.
So I'm not comfortable with just a blanket rezoning that could result in something that we're not seeing this evening, so I'll go ahead and.
Madam Chair.
Madam, go ahead, Larry. I have a question when you're done.
Corey, you had mentioned that the airport might play, well, let me back up. I think the biggest concern all of us have right now is the Live Local Act on this and the potential of the unwanted development there. You had mentioned something about in the proximity of the airport. Does that help or hurt the Live Local?
Vice Chair Leeds, the Live Local provisions, if you are very close to the airport where there could be conflicts of introducing residential users, occupants, residents, that would be adversely affected by noise, the line of flight for aircraft. There's a preclusion of not activating Live Local in those defined specific areas. I'd have to take a look at the most recent statutes to find out if that's a tenth of a mile, a quarter of a mile. I believe it's measured from the runway itself and that cone of noise. So if we were off St. Lucie Boulevard around where Isla Mirada Brewery is, for instance, that's most likely a site that would be precluded from consideration under Live Local. But I believe in prior evaluation, the site didn't have any prohibitions on eligibility for Live Local because it's southwest of the airport. If you look at even the training flight runways, I don't think it was within the metrics identified by the state. So to your question, the closer you are to the airport, the higher potential that Live Local would not apply or would be restricted a little bit further away. Even though this is in the airport overlay zone, it's not in that immediately most impactful area of the airport.
Madam Chair, just another comment. I would be agreeable to continue this and possibly have the applicant get the interested parties to come up with a site plan, check out to see if this could possibly become a Live Local Act if we do it, since it's somewhat unconfirmed and whether or not it could actually happen. It sounds like it could. But I would be inclined to continue this if the board is willing to do that.
Well, we have the applicant here. Anya, would you like to come up just because we got to have you at the microphone? So sort of the options, what you're hearing is we can obviously deny, which then you're dead in the water. Or you can postpone and choose to come back and continue to work with the team and resubmit with a rezone, where again, like Commissioner Townsend explained to you, it can all be done in one night. We would do this first step, and then we would go right into the rezone where we would see the site plan and be able to talk about what you're actually putting there, the impacts, what we're going to expect you to do to mitigate those impacts. So what would you like us, would you like to continue it?
Yeah, I
or?
guess I would postpone.
Yeah, I was. Dave said what I was going to say because I think there's a language barrier too. I don't want you to have spent your time and money, and I don't think any of us do, towards what you've done. We want you to continue. So the question is there somebody currently that you are speaking with that you could go to and say, I possibly have the zoning. Are you willing to enter into this agreement and go to the county and do due diligence with me, and then come to the county, and then they can go back and look at this meeting and see that we want to help you, but we want more assurance that that's what's going to go there, not housing, not whatever. Are you in that position, or there is nobody you're talking to at this time?
We have an interested developer, but like I said, he's just because of the statute, he's
right.
just.
So what we're trying to do is pause this tonight. We're going to continue this, and you can continue this up to what, Corey, 18 months?
Madam Chair, I'm not certain that there's a particular limitation on when we.
So you've gotten this far, right? So get with him. He can watch this meeting. He can see that we all want to help you. Have him come here, meet with you with Corey, and then let him sit down and tell Corey what it is that he's wanting to do with you. And then because he's going to understand if he's a developer.
Yeah,
whatever.
he is.
Have him meet with Corey. He can watch the meeting and see that we're trying to do this, right? So the recommendation is, and I'm happy to make the motion, or any of us, to postpone this so that you are not denied. If you're denied, you have to start all over again. We don't want that for you, okay? So we can postpone it. You continue to get with him, come back and work with Corey and staff, and then At that point in time, you can come back. This can be done because we know what's going to go there. And then you will also have the second phase of that, and it'll all be done on the same night. Does that make sense?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Clausen.
I just want to confirm, Corey, are we talking about changing what we're rezoning to in this, or we're saying that we want the rezoning tied to a site plan? Because isn't there a difference in fees if it was to go to a PNRD or something of that nature?
Absolutely, Commissioner, and a couple important things. For the industrial light district, there's not the ability to tie it to a particular site plan. Some applicants do bundle them, and they'll bring the rezoning, and later on the docket, we have a site plan. But that site plan, it doesn't become binding, and that they can abandon it, they can allow it to expire, pivot, file something different. That certainly has happened from time to time. For instance, to the west, just immediately west of Taylor Dairy Road, at one point it was rezoned to industrial light, and we had Southern Trust knocking on the door. They were going to develop a brand new truss manufacturing facility. That pivoted, they sold it. Treasure Coast Vault came out of the ground, and it's been partly developed by Mr. McBride. So that pivot always tends to happen. But if the applicant wants to modify their petition, shifting from the current industrial light request to a planned retail workplace, what we can consider is crediting that base application fee that they're pursuing the IL under toward the PRW. There's a good chance, because it bundles rezoning and site plans, my recollection, that the fee's higher. So there would be a supplemental fee. There's additional submittal requirements. So for a request for the industrial light, we need things like an environmental assessment. We need a supplement of responses to the standards of review, and we need a survey of the property. For a planned retail workplace, we need preliminary design plans. We need some indication of landscape material, potentially even some baseline tree survey type data. So it would be an undertaking to pivot to a planned retail workplace.
So, and I'm just listening to what we're saying here, because I think we all do want to help the applicant, but I also want us to understand that if we're sticking with continuing with the expectation that they would come in with potentially a person wanting to pull a permit in the site plan, that, I mean, technically it's like having a shed permit in your backyard and never putting the shed there and coming back in with a pool permit. Like you can switch if it's a permitted use. So what are the differences in prices there? Because it could be pretty significant. And for anybody listening, our planning department's funded as an enterprise fund, right? So that's why the fees are such the way they are.
I would approximate that it's probably an additional $4,000 in supplemental application fees. As far as the ingredients to formulate an application, definitely add to that. Another important note, should the petition for rezoning to industrial light be denied by the Board of County Commissioners, there's a 2-year hold period until they can reapply for the same rezoning request.
But that's if they came back in with industrial light again?
Yes.
Not the retail workplace or PNRD?
That is correct. So if an IL rezoning was denied this evening.
But I would, if we were looking to do that, I would definitely want her to be able to receive credits towards rectifying this based off what she's already paid. I mean, because, I mean...
I think
Madam
if that's
Chair,
the direction
just
from
have
the
it-
board.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Well, we're still under public comment, though.
Oh,
Really,
I thought we
yeah.
closed it,
No, I didn't.
Does that change what we can put there?
The planned retail workplace, depending upon different dynamics of it, you could still present a list of light industrial uses that would be eligible for the property.
Oh.
There's a good chance that we might recommend striking some of the most intensive uses or objectionable uses.
Okay.
But certainly the folks have been, through a plan development, have been able to achieve a pretty expansive allowance for non-residential uses.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Corey, what is the time for the continuance? Kathy had mentioned there is none.
So unless there's some opinions from Florida cases, typically there's the option of continuing to a date certain. And that can be 2 months from now, 6 months from now. Oftentimes staff will then prepare courtesy mailers just to let neighbors, hey, this is coming back around. But there's definitely a point, if it's not continued to a date certain, we would renotice a future public hearing with an ad. We would send mailers and update the sign on the property.
Okay. All right, Anya, if I could have you take a seat, because we're still under public comment, so I just want to see if there's anyone else that would like to address the board in regards to this item. Seeing none, I am going to go ahead and close public comment and come back to the board. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Townsend.
I want to make a motion to postpone this to a date uncertain. I think that she needs to get with the gentleman that is interested, and they need to meet with staff, and then they need to find out what direction they want to take, and she needs more time to do this. And so I think that she needs a little bit of help also, because she's a small business trying to do this alone, and she really needs to probably hire the group behind her sitting back there with a smile on her face. But you know, that's the beauty of why we're here, right? We're here to help the little guy, because the big people have the big money and they can afford the planners, right? And so I'm thrilled that the board is in agreement to a lot of this tonight, because this is a little couple trying to come in and trying to make it here in St. Lucie County. So this is going to give you time to get back with staff and bring your gentleman in, and he can have peace of mind of knowing and talking to the staff and everything too. So I make a motion to postpone until date uncertain.
Madam Chair, I want to make sure I added to that and see if the rest of the board agrees that if they do come in with changing what the zoning is and it ends up costing more money, that the current application's fees are credited towards
They automatically do that anyways. They do that anyways. Don't they? Don't they adjust?
So typically that does not occur,
Right.
and in the
Oh.
fee resolution, that is not included as an option. And just to be clear, if you're changing designations then, so like from industrial light to PRW, we would have to restart that process because the PRW has not been presented, it hasn't gone to the DRC, it hasn't gone to planning and zoning. So the fees are to cover those costs for staff doing that work, and you'd be redoing all that work as well.
I understand. That's why I'm saying that I believe since there could be additional cost, and these are our recommendations,
They told
trying
her
to
that.
safeguard the public on this. I think that I would like to credit what she's paid now towards what it's going to cost to do what we're asking.
That's fine.
I was on board, but you just made me not on board, Commissioner Crosby, because I think you're getting into territory that we should not be getting into. So if that is that the motion then?
No, my motion is that we're going to postpone to, I mean, I concur with what he wants to do, but that's another whole conversation. This is to give them time, because I think there's still a lot of work to be done in questions.
Yeah.
And staff and this gentleman, I think, will understand more, because he's going to know more. So my motion is to postpone this till a date uncertain, let her come back in and meet with staff with this gentleman that's interested, and decide what direction they want to go.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Project has been postponed to a date uncertain. All right, up next is going to be Triangle Farms.
Good evening, Madam Chairman.
Good evening.
Members of the Board of County Commissioners, Irene Settlemeyer, Senior Planner with the Planning and Development Services Department. This is a public hearing on the proposed future land use map amendment from Ag 5 to the MXD, Mixed Use Future Land Use with Specific Use Area Activity Sub-Area Policies. This public hearing was continued from November 4th. So the public notice for the November 4th meeting covered this meeting because it was continued to a date certain. Staff did do a courtesy mailing to property owners within 500 feet because the sub-area policies being proposed were changed, and we wanted to at least let them know that there were some changes. Everyone's familiar with the location of the property at the confluence of Okeechobee Road and Midway Road and Shin Road, Port St. Lucie city boundaries to the southeast across Shin and Midway. Midway is a 2-lane road. At this point, it's scheduled to become a 4-lane road over the next 20 years or so. Shin Road is scheduled to remain 2 lanes, but it is expected to go south and connect with Range Line Road, which will curve. So it's the roadway capacity in the area is expected to increase. The land area surrounding the subject site remains primarily rural in both use and character. Property is within the urban services boundary. This slide shows the city of Port St. Lucie's boundaries in yellow and the city of Fort Pierce boundaries in green. Development is coming in from the west. There's some pretty substantial development. The Wilder is some 4,000 dwelling units, mostly single family, but about 600 multifamily. Oak Ridge Ranches is approved for up to, Wilder's in the city of Port St. Lucie. Oak Ridge Ranches is approved for preliminary approval for 8,600. I guess it's expected to total something less than that at when they all have their final site plan. Proposed P1 Motor Club is further to the west. The zoning in the area is predominantly agricultural 5, as the current property, the subject property is Ag 5. We have institutional on our fairgrounds. Port St. Lucie zoning is undetermined on this parcel, PUD on this parcel. The future land use is also Ag 5, predominantly Ag 5. Public facilities, future land use on our fairgrounds, and Port St. Lucie residential low density, commercial general, predominantly Ag 5. Though the purpose of the mixed use development is to provide areas where innovative land use concepts are encouraged and where additional flexibility is needed and community input into the planning decisions. So this public hearing was continued from the November 4th public hearing in order to revisit some of the sub-area policies that had been initially proposed by the applicant. That consultation and further refinement has occurred. The 3 proposed sub-area policies on this screen are the same as were presented previously. All rezoning in the future shall be to the planned non-residential development zoning district. The applications to rezone to PNRD shall identify the proposed permitted, conditional, and accessory uses. No rezoning to planned non-residential development shall be approved until development of equal or greater intensity exists within 1/4 mile, as consistent with the intent of Comprehensive Plan Policy 1.1.2.1. The proposed sub-area policies now include a statement of the desired and anticipated uses, or that the desired anticipated uses include the following: a hotel or motel, eating and drinking establishments, a convenience store and gas station, retail sale of tractors, heavy equipment, retail sales of heavy equipment and construction equipment as a conditional use, a data center as a conditional use, specialty contractor trades, and manufacturing so long as it occurs indoors. Previously, the policies prohibited manufacturing, except for local small-scale agricultural. Now we're opening it to more potential manufacturing activities, recognizing manufacturing as a targeted industry. The proposed sub-area policies also identify some prohibited uses, and that prohibited uses would include outdoor storage as a primary use, including parking or storage of recreational vehicles, automobiles, boats, or trucks. The policies recognize that the outdoor display of tractors or other heavy equipment or similar for sale items is distinguished from storage or parking. So the outdoor display of tractors or equipment would be permitted when it's out for display for sale, as opposed from parking and storage. The sale of new or used automobiles and the sale of used boats and used recreational vehicles will be prohibited. Residential development consistent with the Ag 5 zoning district would be allowed on the two parcel IDs. That's about 20 acres, subject to the standards regarding access to Midway and Okeechobee roads. We don't want to have a lot of new driveways, for each individual dwelling. As far as transportation concurrency, each planned non-residential development zoning will require a developer's agreement or other legally binding agreement to identify the specific measures to satisfy transportation concurrency, and the site plans shall identify a potential location for at least one future transit stop. The development standards are consistent with what was presented previously. 25% minimum open space, excluding stormwater facilities. So it's 25% open space plus whatever is required for the stormwater basins. All development must be served by centralized water and wastewater. Any outdoor light industrial activity must be screened and buffered from adjacent properties and roadways. Maximum floor area ratio is 0.5. Maximum building coverage is 35%. The maximum height of buildings is 40 feet or 3 stories, whichever is lower. The board may, at its sole discretion, approve a taller hotel, and the best dark sky lighting practices will be expected to preserve the rural feel of the area. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on this proposed amendment of the future land use map on July 17th, 2025, and the motion to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners passed unanimously. The staff recommends that the board approve the transmittal of the Triangle Farms future land use map amendment to the State Land Planning Agency. That concludes my presentation. The applicant is represented and has a presentation as well.
Perfect. Good evening.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. For the record, Zach Cesare with Kotler and Hearing in Jupiter. I'm here on behalf of the majority owner of the parcel, Mr. Dean Decker, and his family is in attendance here tonight. Irene did a fantastic job going over all the facts, but I would like to, Irene, if you could be so kind to flip to the sub-area policy. I will walk you through exactly what has changed since our last meeting. And I have it all on one slide here, so it'll be very easy and concise. So the PNRD zoning is staying the same. So this request is only for a land use. I know Live Local was a hot topic here tonight. This does not allow Live Local just because the zoning is not changing. The zoning is still residential. We did remove manufacturing from the prohibited uses, and that is really to enhance the sub-area policies, of course, but it also is a targeted industry in the county's comp plan. We've added conditional uses, which is very interesting and unique as a part of a future land use application. So that gives you additional criteria to provide feedback and review future applications accordingly and appropriately. The residential has remained the same. We're keeping the entitlement the exact same as it is currently zoned for. The open space, we're providing more open space than what would typically be provided under this land use. And the building height is the last thing that changed. So the maximum building height we're capping at 40 feet or 3 stories, consistent with the MXD district. But we do give you, of course, the discretion to allow for a taller hotel, just for a hotel, no other use. Something that would be appropriate, of course, and architecturally sound. So I will note, I forgot to mention it last time, prior to our last meeting that was continued, We did have a community outreach meeting. We sent mailers to all properties within a 1,000-foot radius of our property. We did have a couple of attendees, and both were very much in support of the application. So with that, I will turn it back over either to Irene or Chair Fowler, and I appreciate all of your feedback. Thank you very much.
Any questions while the applicant is on the podium? All right. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on this item? Seeing no public comment, close public comment, come back to the board for
Move
questions,
approval.
comments.
Madam Chair, before we move approval, if you wouldn't mind, I just wanted to say that, this project is in stark contrast to the one that we just had, because the one we just had, there was going to be a blanket approval with tons of permitted uses, whereas this one has very specific uses that our staff and we are approving that can go there. So that's why I would also be in favor of this. I'll second that motion.
It's been in years. This has been Mr. Decker's dream for years.
All right, well, I'm okay with being the lone duck. So for me, this is no different than what we just saw. This is us being asked to make a land use promise today without knowing what's going there. We have an idea. We have some sub-area policies with some uses. But again, as we just had a conversation, new board, those uses can change. And today's promises could be tomorrow's problems. So again, for me, without a concurrent rezoning, we're effectively opening the door for a future board and future residents to deal with whatever this becomes, and that's not responsible growth, and it is an avoidable risk. So just going to come through here. As we know, per staff's report, it does not meet policy 1.1.2.1. It's not within a quarter mile of any other MXDs in the area. It also currently, even though it is right in, the back door, it also currently cannot be served by our wastewater. Again, this piece of property is going to be developed, should be developed. It's in a great location, but we have to put the brakes on, again, approving something and not knowing what's going in here. One of the conditional uses is a data center. How many emails have we gotten today alone about data centers? So again, we need to be careful. Again, we are all staunch advocates of property rights. Build what you want to build, but we have to start knowing what they are building. Page 18, FDOT, they're meeting on 7/15 to review the potential impacts to our strategic intermodal system, or SIS for short. It says, at the present time, the type and amount of development permitted by this future land use map amendment may place an undue burden on transportation facilities. If you all are also not aware, FDOT is pausing all future PD&Es. They have $1 billion shortfall. We have TPO tomorrow, so feel free to ask Peter Buchwald if you... Or actually, I think George and Maite now sit in on those, so they're aware that that is accurate. We already know that the level of service between Midway and Okeechobee Road is expected to fall below the level of service, just with what has already been approved between the City of Port St. Lucie, City of Fort Pierce, and county projects like Oak Ridge Ranches. Page 23, Objective 1.1.5, Urban Sprawl. In our own words, after staff goes into some comments, it says, third paragraph, last sentence, in these regards, the future land use map amendment might be said to encourage urban sprawl. So, once again, I think for the sake of our current residents, our infrastructure, our long-term vision, land use changes should be accompanied by rezonings, and anything less is simply unchecked growth. So that's where I'm at with
Madam
this.
Chair.
However, I know there is a motion and a second.
I want Mr. Landry to confirm, our utilities goes right by this piece of property. Will this not be serviced by our utilities because it goes to Header Canal?
So, Madam Chair, Commissioners, there's a current 12-inch water line that is actively serving along Midway and connecting in there, and the wastewater line is under construction. It might be in the ground, but still going through a testing phase, so it will be probably available sometime in the very real near future if it hasn't already been passing its test.
Okay, I just wanted that confirmed because I knew that our utilities was there and that they would be able to attach to them.
All right, so if there's no other comments from any other commissioners, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Lee,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Laurie,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Classby,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Townsend,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Fowler.
No, ma'am. All right, congratulations. Moving along to number 3, our second reading for our impact fee ordinance. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Commissioners. Ben Balser, Planning and Development Services Director. For the record, tonight, as you mentioned, we're here for the adoption hearing on the Multimodal Transportation Impact Fee Ordinance. With me tonight is Corey Benton, Planning and Zoning Manager, and Joe Sabater, Senior Management Analyst. We'll walk through a summary of the study update, the public engagement process, and the proposed fee schedule before requesting the board's adoption of the updated ordinance. As required, notice for this hearing was properly advertised and made available to the public, and all study materials have been posted on the county's website. For background, St. Lucie County first adopted its road impact fees in 1985, implementing them the following year as a core funding source for roadway capacity improvements. Today, we are 7th out of 67 counties in projected population growth and 13th in residential permitting. In 2024, these are all clear indicators that growth pressures remain strong, which places a burden on our transportation system. Our road impact fees were last updated in 2022, and that update was capped at 50% and discounted to 75% of that calculated rate. The program currently funds only county and state roadway capacity projects with fees distributed among jurisdictions based on the vehicle miles traveled. Through our interlocal agreements with the cities of Fort Pierce and Port St. Lucie, fees are collected seamlessly through the permitting agency. Developers and builders pay one jurisdiction, and the cities remit the county's portion, retaining a 4% administrative fee. Under that structure, Port St. Lucie receives approximately a 60% discount and Fort Pierce about a 3% discount. Again, that's based on their travel demand distribution. So why update the impact fee study now? The board directed staff to complete the update of the impact fee study for 3 key reasons. First, construction costs and population growth have significantly exceeded the assumptions used in the 2022 study. Second, our consultant completed an extraordinary circumstances analysis that confirmed that current conditions justify updating the study ahead of the statutory cycle. And third, the update ensures that we're using the most current data. That includes the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. That's the 12th edition that was published recently this August. Here's a summary of the board's direction over the past year. On December 10th, 2024, Banesh, who is our county's consultant, and staff presented options for mobility, multimodal, and traditional road impact fees. The board at that time directed staff to proceed with the update a year early. On February 4th, 2025, the board approved a contract with Banesh to update the impact fee study. At a special informal meeting on June 10th, the board directed staff to pursue a multimodal impact fee, providing increased flexibility in how our impact fee funds may be spent. On August 19th, the board continued the first reading of this proposed ordinance. On September 16th, the board directed staff to hold a special informal meeting to finalize rates and implementation and return for tonight's presentation for the final adoption hearing. On November 18th, staff presented the rate and implementation options, leading to tonight's recommended update of the draft ordinance. Staff has worked to ensure broad outreach throughout this entire process. We held 2 extraordinary circumstances workshops. Those were on July 17th and August 19th of this year. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the study on July 17th and recommended approval by a 4-to-1 vote. We also hosted a virtual public workshop session that was on September 10th and open to anybody who was concerned or interested about the subject. In addition to the workshops, staff presented to the Treasure Coast Builders Association on August 14th, the Citizens Budget Committee, that was on August 15th, the St. Lucie Realtors Association on September 2nd, and the Kings Highway Corridor Association on September 12th. And again, as I previously stated, all study files and supporting information has been publicly available throughout the entire impact fee update process on the county's website. The next slides show the proposed fee schedules for each of the county's benefit zones. They are the unincorporated St. Lucie County, Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce, North Island, South Island, and Fort Pierce Island. Across all of these zones, we're recommending a 50% increase in all land use categories except multipurpose recreation center, which is capped at 25%, as was previously directed by this board. All increases are proposed to be phased in over 4 years, with year 1 beginning in October 1st, 2026. This phased-in option provides a real benefit. It gives residents, builders, and developers ample time to plan and budget for these updated rates. It avoids sudden changes and supports long-term feasibility. The October 1st, 2026 implementation date adds roughly 10 months before the first increment takes effect. This table for the unincorporated county highlights how reasonable these adjustments are. Residential increases range from $1,700 to $3,500 total over the 4-year period. Retail and office increases range from $2,000 to $4,000. Industrial uses increase by just under $400 total. And these totals represent the entire 4-year period. Many categories increase by only a few $100s per year. For Port St. Lucie, increases at the 50% cap remain very modest. Residential changes range from $600 to $1,280 total over the 4 years, or about $150 to $320 per year. Industrial uses show the smallest adjustments, ranging from $139 to $220 total, or $35 to $55 per year, which is a nominal increase relative to the overall project scale. This table shows the proposed increases for the city of Fort Pierce. Residential categories increase from about $1,650 to $3,440, depending on the size of the dwelling unit. Broken out annually, that's $410 to $860 per year. Retail uses increase between $1,880 and $4,170 total, or about $470 to $1,040 per year. Industrial increases remain small at $95 to $150 per year. This ensures that Fort Pierce remains extremely competitive for new job-creating industrial projects. The county currently has 3 island benefit zones within the adopted impact fee ordinance. These rates are based off of the vehicles miles traveled for each zone when compared to the mainland St. Lucie County zone. This slide shows the proposed increases for North Hutchinson Island, and again, we see that the adjustments with the 50% cap remain very modest. Residential, which is the predominant development on North Hutchinson Island, results in increases from $1,370 to roughly $2,800, or $340 to $710 annually. All adjustments remain measured and manageable across all of the land uses shown on the screen. This slide presents the proposed fee adjustments for South Hutchinson Island benefit zone. And consistent with the other zones, even at the full 50% capped rate, these increases remain reasonable. Looking at the residential uses, the total increase over 4 years ranges from about $1,480 to just over $3,090, depending on the size of the unit. When phased in, these amounts break down to roughly $370 to $770 per year. As I said, these are reasonable and well within the normal market fluctuations given the higher value construction typical within this area. This slide represents Fort Pierce Island, which is incorporated into the city with development concentrated along Seaway Drive south to Ocean Village. Residential increases range from $1,580 to about $3,300, or $400 to $825 per year. For coastal multifamily development, condominium redevelopment, or townhome construction, these are minor adjustments compared to the overall project costs and typical market fluctuations. Even after the phase-in, all island impact fee zones remain relatively competitive compared to other coastal communities within the state of Florida, many of which have significantly higher multimodal or transportation impact fees. Our phased-in approach and cap structure keeps the island affordable for reinvestment. The proposal before you tonight strikes a balance between fiscal responsibility and development predictability. The 4-year phase-in, paired with the October 1st, 2026 implementation date, gives residents, builders, and developers time to plan and adjust. It avoids sudden increases and keeps St. Lucie County's rates well within and often below those in counties experiencing similar growth. And with that, staff recommends approval of the multimodal transportation impact fee ordinance as drafted. We're available for any questions.
All right, thank you, Ben. Any questions before I open it up?
Yeah, real quick.
Commissioner Cosby?
In that presentation, did I miss it? Did you cover what surrounding counties' impact fees were?
It's not included in the presentation, Commissioner Clasby. Throughout the other informal and special hearings, we did have slides that showed the recommended rates, those counties that are going through impact fee updates currently and their current rates.
Where do we stack up against what the current rates are, even without these increases versus other counties? Do you have that info?
Not included within this presentation. I can say we're well within the surrounding counties. We might be lower than Okeechobee County and Martin, but I know Indian River County, they're proposing impact fee updates right now, and they're on par with our recommendations.
Okay, that's all I have for now.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Townsend.
Okeechobee doesn't have impact fees. They're just talking about beginning them. But I do want to take a second to thank the agencies that worked with staff, that came and spoke, and the realtors and TCBA and the chamber and everybody. I think their input was a big help, and it was, I think, helped staff guide. I do want to recognize Jill. She was a force in a lot of this, and I think coming and meeting with all of us and helping all of us recognize where we needed to be. So I see some of you back there. I want to say thank you, and thank you for participating and being a voice in a lot of this with us, because it matters. So thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open this up to public comment. This is a public hearing item. Anyone wishing to address the board on this item?
Good evening.
Good evening, Wes.
For the record, my name is Wes McCurry with the St. Lucie Economic Development Council. Madam Chair, Commissioners, Administration, and staff, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item. I want to express the EDC's appreciation for your thoughtful review of how the proposed transportation impact fee changes may affect the competitiveness of developing industrial sites within St. Lucie County. We are grateful for the open dialogue and your work to balance needed infrastructure investments with the need to stay competitive for industrial manufacturing projects and the high wage jobs that they bring. We also appreciate staff's detailed analysis and attention to how these changes could affect the feasibility of those projects. So thank you again for your partnership and for considering the importance of maintaining cost-competitive, shovel-ready industrial sites within the county. We look forward to continuing our partnership together to keep St. Lucie County a strong destination for business investment and job growth. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Deb Frazier with the Treasure Coast Builders Association. I also want to thank you all. I've met with all of you, spoken with all of you. The staff has been incredible. I call Ben. He actually still answers the phone when I call. So thank you, Ben.
He's
I
a
appreciate
rock
that.
star, one of them.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And Corey, Joseph, you're all great. So thank you for all you've done. I am sure you're all well aware that the City of Port St. Lucie yesterday morning decided not to increase their mobility fees at all. And the reasons are exactly the same reasons that I've been talking about every single time I've stood up here. And again, I do thank you for the time you've given me and that you have listened, because there have been some changes. But I'm still going to ask you to wait. So housing affordability, as you know, and the realtors, Thomas is here this evening. Housing affordability is an issue as we've talked about. Again, permits have decreased in the county of Port St. Lucie. Out of the last 10 months, they've decreased 8 of them. That's just against last year. The year before, it was even worse, and I'm just talking new construction. SB 1080 is now being looked at the state level. I think they're going to make some changes, and we certainly wouldn't be opposed to seeing some of those changes. So I think the rush to get this passed before the end of the year may not be as prevalent as it was. Interest rates, as we know, are still high. They've gone back up a little bit. We don't know what the Fed's going to do. I'm a believer that in March the Fed is going to make some changes, but I'm not a betting person, but if I could bet, I'd say I could be wrong. I'm just concerned that interest rates are not moving in the direction that we really want to see them. And housing affordability truly needs about a 5% interest rate again to really see some housing movement and housing affordability. Tariffs, as we know, are continuing, higher construction costs. And so all of these things play into the changes that you're looking to make. And so the TCBA is asking you to vote for 0 increases today and review this again next fall when you were going to impose them anyway. You were going to give that time frame. But if you could wait and let's see where the market is, where we are on tariffs, where we are on construction costs, and more importantly, where we are on interest rates, because I'm hoping by the end of next year, we're going to see a housing change and that the construction industry, the housing industry is going to improve. So again, thank you for your consideration. Thank you for all the time that you have spent on this. It has been incredibly appreciated, and the TCBA appreciates you all very much.
Thank you, Deb. We're still under public comment. Anyone else wishing to address the board on this item? Seeing no movement, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and come back to the board.
Madam Chair, I'm in agreement with her. Actually, I'm fine with pausing this. I don't know that I would have the support of the board, but I said that from the very beginning. I got to 50% after having some conversations, but my priority first would be to pause and wait. I don't know where the rest of the board sits, so I'll wait and hear from the rest of you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clasby.
So at the beginning of this conversation, I mean, I've made it pretty clear that I'm not a big fan of impact fees, but since we were opening up the can early to talk about them, I had a couple requests. I wanted to differentiate impact fees specifically for infill scattered lots, treat them differently than, permits that came in as a part of a multi-unit subdivision. Kind of found out through that process that through this, we can't necessarily do that. Maybe a question for staff as to whether or not we can pass a separate ordinance that discounts infill scattered lots separate from the setting of the impact fees. I don't know if that's legal or not. We'd have to find out. Another request that I had made was that impact fees east of 95 should be lower than impact fees west of 95. I don't know if that was still in here, but that ended up resulting in inside urban services boundary versus outside. And I also wanted to make sure that we're staying somewhat competitive with surrounding counties. We don't want to be tremendously higher than Indian River County and Martin County and Okeechobee. And part of that reasoning as to why I think that we should be competitive is that we control the throttle on what development is approved and what development is not approved. I heard that, just with TCBA commenting that the building permits are down 8%. I happen to believe that they're about to spike big time because prior to me getting on the board, The county approved Oak Ridge Ranches and several other large developments. So those building permits will definitely be coming in at some point. And, you know, this is obviously a way to kind of capture a little bit more money from them. I'm not a big fan of that theory of thought. You know, I think that we have to be responsible with the development that we approve. And that's why, since getting on the board, I've been a little bit more of a staunch critic of large-scale future land use changes that result in big developments, especially when the roadway is not there to accommodate it. So with Port St. Lucie not approving, there are extraordinary circumstances. Yesterday, I'm also in agreement that I believe that we should wait till our normal cycle. And I'm also kind of interested to hear the reasoning for extraordinary circumstances at this point, because this, for those that are not familiar with the impact fee process, it's a once every 4 years, is that right? And we're actually at the 3-year mark. So we were coming in early, which comes with a whole other set of rules. And we have a consultant's report that says that we meet extraordinary circumstances. The board doesn't have to agree with that consultant's report. But given that we're discussing 50%, under 50%, 25% of the consultant's recommendation, right? Because extraordinary circumstances will be if we adopted 100% of the recommendation. Is that right?
Correct.
So Chair Fowler, Commissioner Clasby, the extraordinary circumstances are twofold. If you adopt something before the statutory time limit, you need to show that you have extraordinary circumstances. And then if you go over the 50% statutory limit, you have to show extraordinary circumstances. So with this update, you're not going over 50%, so extraordinary circumstances don't apply. And the implementation date is October 1st, 2026, which would be when our current impact fee ordinance expires. So you wouldn't need extraordinary circumstances, and that's my opinion. I would look to other folks up here or administration and legal, but this process is not using extraordinary circumstances. Basically, through guidance to staff, have told us that you don't want to use the study that Banesh completed and just go with the 25 or 50% increase in impact fees over the current rate, which I would say our current rate's on par with the existing counties around us. So in turn, a 12.5% annual increase would also be, over 4 years, would also be in line with what is going on around us.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Commissioner Clasby, if I may add to that, just for some perspective, in 2024, our impact fee annual report identified that we had allocations of about $30 million toward a widening of Midway Road from Jenkins Road to Selvets Road. And we can look at intricacies of the costs of the roadways that we have throughout the various process. But to transcribe $30 million worth of roadway improvements under today's rate for a single-family home of less than $2,400, or 2,400 square feet at 5771, that equates to roughly 5,200 single-family homes that would need to pay impact fees to cover that $30 million bill, whereas under the proposed rates, even when we achieve that 50% over a 4-year increase, if we're 4 years ahead, 2030, when we see the full expanse, that reduces that to about 3,400 units needing to pay impact fees to cover that type of improvement and balance. Still a substantial amount of units. So just kind of a tangible example of a roadway improvement that our counties needed. It's needed to support growth and activities. There's homes on the ground. There's residents that use it to get to and from work, school, where they need to go to visit. And so it's just a tangible example of those costs have increased. Therefore, these rates, as Ben indicated, they're modest increases. They're phased in to allow budgets and consistency and folks to plan, but it allows the county to plan capital improvements and partner with the transportation planning organization DOT to look at those infrastructure needs over the next 4 to 5 years and have adequate funds or at least increased funds to support those needed improvements.
Well, I'm only one voice, but I think that we should wait till the normal time frame to update the impact fees.
Madam Chair.
Okay, so I need everyone to start waiting until I acknowledge you, please. Commissioner Lee, go ahead.
I have struggled with this. I look at our housing, and we know that the impact fees is designed to offset the cost of growth so that it's not put upon the residents that are currently here. At the current rate, it is not keeping up with the growth. Our roads, from the numbers that have been given to us, we're roughly $45 million behind in roads that should be repaired right now. And I just got word, I believe it was today, with our Public Works Department, that Glades Cutoff is going to be looking like $20 million worth. And that road definitely needs it. So do we need money? Yes, we do. Is this going to pay for it all? Absolutely not. Where I struggle big time is the affordability of the homes. And I will say that my mind goes back and forth on that. When you look at our area, we do have the lowest prices homes in the area outside of Okeechobee. In fact, we have a lot of people moving into our county from the more expensive counties and transporting to their work in the other counties because of our affordable housing. That being said, it doesn't make it any more affordable for our residents here, but it definitely might discourage some growth coming in from the other counties, which smart growth is smart growth. I don't know if it's possible, but I do like the 50%. I wouldn't have a problem reducing down the residential to 25% to help that a little bit. But I am for increasing the fees because we do need them for roads. But I also do understand the Affordability Act, and I do have concerns with our local residents being able to afford. That being said, I could live with it at the 50%, but if possible, lower the residential impacts and help the new buyers.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lowry.
Kind of on the same road as Commissioner Leet. I know our roads we have a major deficit in funding to keep the roads the way they are and to build new roads. But then again, we think about affordability. I do like the idea of residential maybe only at 25%. That would help. We don't want development to outpace our infrastructure, and I feel like a lot of our county roads are really in dire shape right now. So I'm either between 25% for residential or not increasing until next year. This has been a really tough one for me.
That's it. Okay, yep. So just a couple clarification points is, one, we are not doing or considering extraordinary circumstance. I just want to clarify because there's been a lot of comments. So we are not, at this time, this board has already dictated to our team that we are not interested in extraordinary circumstances. So what is before us tonight is not extraordinary circumstances. I think that's one of the most important things. Second thing is, if we do make a decision tonight, it is not going to go into effect until it is due to go into effect, October of next year. Now, that being said, quick question, whoever wants to answer it, the study, how good is the study good for that we just did?
Chair Fowler, the study statutorily has to be done within the last 12 months.
Last
So it's
12
good for 12 months.
Okay. So would we be able to use this study if we waited? So if the board decided to do nothing and wait and restart the process, would this current study be good, or do we have to spend another, I think, $250,000 to do it?
Chair Fowler, I don't know if the cost will be as extensive, but yes, you would have to complete another study.
Okay. So affordability is on the top of all of our minds, but I do want to point out we only have so much control over that aspect, okay? So when we talk about construction costs, we have no control over that. We also are a victim of construction costs, right? A 4 million 1 mile roadway is now 6.2 or 6.8 million. Tariffs, we have no control over tariffs. Interest rates, no control over interest rates. There are so many different variables that go into affordability or lack thereof. There is not just one single item that is going to make or break housing affordability here. So again, it's doing the right thing for everyone involved. And when I take a look at this, taking a look at single-family homes, less than 2,400 square feet, we're currently at 5771. We're looking at over a 4-year period going up a total of $2,800 and change, which is an increase of $721 a year. When you are looking at it that way, that is very reasonable. We have multiple business people up here that ran businesses, owned businesses. We all know there is an increase in a cost of doing business year over year. Again, $721 for a single family residence under 2,400 square foot, which is the majority of what gets built here. That is not a huge increase. And when you flip it to Port St. Lucie, because it's only 60%, would you do that real quick? Thank you. Port St. Lucie, you're only seeing $257 a year increase for that same home. So again, I'm always open for conversations, but I don't think the single family is really that high when you take a look at it and break it down and think of it in that way. And then also retail and shopping, right? That has been very important for us, ensuring that we have that here. Industrial, we have jobs here, continue to have jobs here. Your retail items in Port St. Lucie will stick right here. Look at how nominal, $646 over 4 years. That's $161 a year. Come on, guys, that's not a lot of money. What, and quite frankly, what can we do with $161 a year? It's not a lot. So at the end of the day, this, in my mind, is a compromise because it is going up, but it's not going up nearly what we would have to capture to be able to make a dent in the infrastructure improvements that we have to do. However, we can't expect everyone, again, which I've said before, to pay for lack of increasing them over such a long period of time. So I'm okay. I'm okay with moving this forward as it is. I think we've listened. I think we've listened to businesses, residents, the builders, the realtors. I mean, I never want to point anyone out because I didn't say I was going to mention this, but I think we all had a meeting with a group of people and they probably all shared the same message, which was, even if we did raise them up all the way to the max, we still cannot pay for what we have to pay for. So it really just comes down to what is reasonable across the board for everyone. And I think this is a good balance, right? It's compromise. Not everyone out there is happy, and not everyone up here is happy. That is the definition of compromise. So those are my thoughts. And we already did public comments, so if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion, or
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clasby.
So, I mean, affordability is big for me, and I wish that somebody would have just done a construction budget for a single-family home, because impact fees actually do make up a pretty big portion of a budget when you're talking about a single house. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, especially people that are definitely listening to this on Facebook and wherever else, we're thinking impact fees as like a punishment to big developers. Well, there's mom and pop builders out there too that, you know, that they build a couple homes a year and that's how they make their living. And making giant increases to impact fees really does hurt their bottom line and their small businesses. You know, everybody's not a national builder. And so with that, I think that affordability is big in my mind with this. And again, like I had said before, I would love to see a separate ordinance that addresses scattered infill lots getting a discount over what this is, because our impact fees are already really high. And it was also stated that even if we went to 100% of the recommendation, we're not even going to touch the infrastructure needs that are there because the county has approved too much development in my mind. So impact fees is not a way to fix that. And as far as the study goes, I believe the current study that we have is good until February. Is that right?
Yeah, technically we have till February 13th to adopt this.
February 13th, so just before Valentine's Day. Okay, so with that, we are entering the normal 4-year cycle next year, in which time we would be hiring a consultant anyways for the other, how many impact fees are there? 7, 8,
So to
30?
clarify, we're currently under contract, working on the study for the other fees.
Right, so we're already under contract with them, so, and they already have a good baseline. I'm assuming it's the same vendor.
Yes.
They already have a good baseline of what that updated study would say, I'm assuming. I'd be shocked if they came up with drastically different results with a new contract with us. So I think that they don't have a lot of work to do should we push it to next year and they come up with the study and we update our impact fees in line with all of the other ones. So I would, question whether they're going to charge us a full fee for an updated road impact fee study is all I'm saying. And I'd like to wait till next year personally.
All right. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Lee, I apologize. I saw Ben start
I
to.
just wanted to clarify, Chair Fowler and Commissioner Clasby, even if we did wait till next year, the implementation date that we would be requesting would still remain October 1st, 2026. So, because that's when our current ordinance expires. So we wouldn't be gaining anything there as far as timing. It's just delaying the inevitable, and we'd be doing these public hearings again. Just wanted to clarify that for the board.
Yeah. I mean, and let's also really quick too, right? Property taxes. If property taxes gets approved, again, something we can't control, housing market is going to go insane down here. The feds will be reducing the rates. Again, they're going to go insane down here. We are going to be the only state in the nation, if it passes, that has no property taxes. Here you go again, 21, 2022, 2023, just throw that ball in the air and ask for whatever, because that's what you're going to get. You're going to have a bidding war. It'll be chaos all over again. And those are things that we cannot control. Those are things that we have to try to plan for, which is very difficult to do.
I think that we can't, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clasby.
I think that we can control some of that because ultimately we're the ones that approve or deny future land use changes.
We're not at the Tallahassee level, Commissioner Clasby, where we get to decide whether or not property taxes are going to make it onto the ballot.
Well,
That's not for us to decide. That's out of our control. That's what I'm saying. There's things, there's a lot of factors and other things going on that affect housing affordability that we have no control over, is all I'm saying. So with that, I think we all know where we're at. So does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as is.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? All right. No second?
Can I get clarification? When you say as is, are you saying 50% or 100%?
Correct. No, 50%.
All right.
And as the plan said, implemented next October, split over a 4-year period. If I can make public comment, the fee that we already paid, I don't think it's fair to the constituents to pay it again. It's obviously not that cheap, and I don't think that the difference that we're going to make between now and December or February, if we held off, is going to be anything near substantial to compensate for the additional cost of the survey that we have to do.
Madam Chair, can I ask
Commissioner
a question?
Thompson.
So in your opinion, I don't know who wants to answer this. I don't think they're going to charge us the full amount if they have to go back and do this again. And they're already doing the other part of it. So I know you can't give us an exact number, but if this was to be placed on hold and then come back and then they were to have to redo some of this, what price range do you think we're looking at?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, without actually having that conversation with the consultant and considering what we paid before, it's reasonable to think that we would still pay plus or minus $100,000 to redo something to provide us the same information that we have in front of you today. And that $100,000, in staff's humble opinion, could be used on a road versus redoing a report that we've done. And just one other thing that the board's already aware of, if you look back over the last 5 years, I think if we look back, and probably pull this up really quickly, but I think the unincorporated county's population 5 years ago was around 80,000. I think today it's around 86,000. So in 5 years, the unincorporated county has grown 6,000 people. We're up here discussing how we can control approvals of land use to minimize the impacts on the road, but over the last 5 years, we've only had a 6,000 plus or minus increase in population in the unincorporated county. However, St. Lucie County as a whole has increased by 100 and some odd thousand over that same 5 years. So obviously, we don't have much control over the road impacts that are happening, but without some sort of mechanism to do so. So you'll be responsible to help mitigate those road issues with very little oversight on how you say yes or no to the developments, because they're technically not really happening with us. They're happening in our other jurisdictions that you can't say nothing on. So this is one of your only mechanisms to try to help mitigate that. So that's just food for thought. I mean, it'd be different if we were growing by the 100,000 and you were in total control of that, but that's not the case. So that's just something just keep in your mind, because I know we look at it twofold, but we don't have that same option, that's happening, because you can't control the other municipalities that are approving or denying, applications that are coming before them.
Just to add to that too, the tentative draft update will be around January 30th also. It'll be up for adoption by May is our goal.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yeah, it did. And Madam Chair, can I continue?
Absolutely.
So I feel that our impact fee, kudos to you, Commissioner Claus, because I agree with probably 80% of what you said. That's a rare thing up here.
I'm going to put that on my resume.
Because I feel, and I have felt this the entire time I have ever been sitting up here, our impact fees are too high. At the same time, Commissioner Fowler, I agree, we have roads. However, the growth is going to be in the county, and so the next 30,000 homes are going to be in the unincorporated county. We're not going to look at 8,000, we're going to look at 30,000. So the money is going to be there. 14 million was given to Glades Cutoff by Oak Ridge Ranches. So out of the 20 we need, 14 Oak Ridge is paying. We have to come up with 6. Okay, growth does help pay for some of that. So, I would agree to maybe not pause this, although I would love to pause it. I'd love to just keep it the way it is and not change anything, personally. But I think to be fair about this, we all know that, and like you said, Commissioner Fowler, we can't stop interest rates. We can't stop a piece of lumber going up or whatever. That's beyond our control. Cost of living is real. It happens, right? And we understand that. So I do think that, unfortunately, things do have to adjust because we have to have a cost of living in there. But I think with what our impact fees are today and with what's coming that we already know that's on the books, I'll make a motion that we just go to 25%. I think that's meeting in the middle or being fair.
I'll second that.
Madam Chair, it pains me to do this. I do not like doing this, but I just want to clarify. Glades Cutoff Road isn't 20 million, it's 200 million. So the 14 we got towards it, it's the other part. I just wanted to point that out because
you're correct. I left out a 0. Yeah.
Gonna come back.
I'm just saying the development did give 14
towards it. Yes, that was helpful. You are right.
And it doesn't have to pain you. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Correct me, please. But I think if we're going to meet in the middle, we're going to be fair about this. Let's just do 25%, and I think we're being fair to everybody. And we know the growth is coming down Embryo Road. That's where the housing is coming. We're going to see a lot of growth in St. Lucie County, and we're not going to have to go back and pay the consultant to redo anything. We have that already, and Ben's going to go home tonight and probably have a nice stiff drink thinking, what did Commissioner Townsend do to me? But that's my motion.
Madam Chair.
Do we have, Commissioner Clasby, just a moment, do we have or can you pull up what the 25% looks like? And then Commissioner Clasby, I'll go over to you why they do that.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, and just for discussion purposes here, we're talking 25 implemented immediately
No, phased in.
Phased in.
Over
Phased
4
in
years
to
or
fi-
2 years?
Over the 4 or 5.
4.
It'll begin October of next year and it'll be phased in.
I don't know if I would want to phase 25% over 4 years. I think I had seen things in our previous meetings about if we did 25, it'd be 2 years.
Yeah.
That would be something, Madam Chair, Commissioners, we'd ask you to consider because it'd be very helpful for planning
Okay.
purposes, but we're not being pushy. We don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth.
I'll amend my motion to go to the 25% over 2-year phase in.
And I'll second that.
So Chair Fowler, I'm not a math guy, but Corey is, and he said that if you did a 25% increase, year 2 would just be the max.
At least that ballpark.
At least that ballpark, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So with that, there is a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You got through it. Good job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Property acquisitions is up. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Joanne Riley, Property Acquisition Director. With me tonight is Kayla Chidgey, Property Acquisition Manager. Items D1 and D2 are public hearings. The first public hearing is for a petition for abandonment. The second public hearing would be to accept an easement based on the approval of the public hearing. We would appreciate the opportunity to present these items as one. And without objection, I will turn it over to Kayla.
Yes, please. Go right ahead.
Good evening. The Property Acquisition Department received a request from Andrea and Christopher Logston to abandon a portion of a 12-foot public drainage easement as described in Plat Book 10, page 70, as shown in red on your monitors. The existing drainage easement bisects the property located at 8805 Marie Road. In order to avoid future risk of stormwater washout while meeting building setback requirements, the applicants have requested to abandon a portion of the existing east-west drainage easement and provide a new drainage easement that conveys stormwater south of their proposed residence and west into an existing drainage ditch. A new easement over the relocated drainage area will be recorded in the public records upon approval of this abandonment petition. A notice of intent to abandon was advertised by Christopher and Andrea Logston on September 16th and September 23rd, 2025, and no objections were received. On November 4th, 2025, the Board of County Commissioners approved permission to advertise a public hearing. On November 17th, 2025, county staff notified property owners within 500 feet of the abandonment area, and one objection was received. Mr. Snyder, residing at 8755 Moco Lane, expressed concerns about flooding if the drainage easement was blocked. The new drainage path provided by the new drainage easement will supply the same drainage capacity as the current easement does. On November 18th, 2025, county staff advertised a notice of public hearing in the St. Lucie News Tribune for a public hearing to be held on December 2nd, 2025 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the item may be heard. Two abutting property owners were provided an affidavit of consent or objection from abutting property owner by the petitioner. One signed affidavit of consent was received from 182 Laid Back Way, LLC. The remaining property owner, J Gardens, LLC, did not provide a signed affidavit of consent or objection. County staff has reviewed the petition to abandon a portion of the 12-foot drainage easement. Staff has no objection subject to the approval of item 10D2, which grants the county an alternate drainage easement. Staff recommends that the board approve resolutions 2025-240 and 2025-241, authorize the chair to sign the resolutions and easement in favor of St. Lucie County, instruct staff to publish the final notice of abandonment, record the resolutions, proof of publication, and easement in the public records of St. Lucie County, Florida. We are available with for any questions the board may have.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions of the board? Mhm. All right, with that, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to address us on this item? Hi, good evening. Good.
The applicant for, I'm the applicant for the abandonment, and I first want to say I appreciate commissioners and hearing us out, and staff has been excellent helping us. I'm Christopher Loxton. So when we first bought this property, I honestly was unaware of what a public drainage easement even was. So I've got a lot of information on it and a lot of understanding. Spoken with Kayla, she's been great throughout the process. I'm not entirely sure if I knew what this process was going to be like that I would have done it. But I do have 2 little babies, and they're the reason that I bought this lot. They're going to get a chance to hopefully grow up near their cousins and other families in a safe neighborhood. And so we took a swing at it, and we've been going through the process, and it has been a lot, but I think it can be worth it. I think that the proposed drainage plan is fair. I think it is reasonable, and I think it was done in a way that will move stormwater safely, which is what I want for the neighborhood, as I do have 5 families that live out there, including my brother, uncles, and cousins. I just want to tell you guys I appreciate your service to the county and for hearing me out, and hopefully we can get it approved so we can start building. So thank you guys.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to address us under public comment? Seeing no movement, I'm going to close public comment and come back to the board. Sorry, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Interim County Attorney Barbieri, we're still going to do 2 separate votes, however, even though they were presented together?
That is correct.
Okay. Commissioner
So
Townsend?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And on item 2, motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I need to
Thank you.
interrupt one time. I need to ask the attorney, Ms. Barbieri, because I made the motion, does she actually need to go to item 2 and open and close public hearing to come back?
Yeah.
Okay, so just open and close.
Second item is not a public hearing, it's just a resolution. It was added under here so that
Number
we
2?
were together. Is that correct,
Property
Ms. Riley?
acquisitions number 2? D2?
Oh, I think that one was actually under consent originally, but they
Yeah,
moved it
they-
Okay,
together.
all right,
Yeah.
so then we're good, thank
Yeah,
you.
my apologies, Commissioner. We didn't let you know that it wasn't a public hearing part of that one, but it was just
Right.
there.
Thanks. And I just do want to say, I have worked diligently with this young couple. I was familiar with this property before they ever bought it. Had they come to me before they bought it, I would have said no. That has been a nightmare for years. And I want to thank staff. I want to thank Public Works and Ben and everybody. This couple has been through it, and they've hung in there. And I want to thank you for hanging in there. It's been multiple nights of conversations. They've worked hard to earn this property. So again, Patrick, Ben, everybody, thank you for everything, for working with them. And Kayla and Joanne, you've been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, moving into public safety. We have our COPCN ordinance.
All right, good evening, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Ron Garetta. I'm the Public Safety Director. Joining me tonight is Assistant County Attorney Sierra Ford, and this is the amendment to the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. This has been ongoing for about 2 years, deep dive in this. I want to, before I begin, thank the Assistant Chief Gonzalez and Chief Wilson from the Fire District. They have been instrumental in reviewing this ordinance, making sense out of it. Because by no means I am the EMS or emergency medical services subject matter expertise, so I heavily rely on them to provide guidance. So I'm very appreciative of them and them sticking through tonight. So With that being said, this was properly advertised, the local newspapers, and we'll start just to give you a brief overview of what a certificate of public convenience and necessity is. It is something that's statutory for the counties to do under Chapter 401 of the Florida statutes. It requires us to issue a certificate of public convenience to ambulances that are doing services or doing business within the county. And is, again, a formal authorization that certifies that there is a public need for service and that the provider itself is capable of delivering the services safely and reliably. So basically, it is something that is needed and allows it. Oh, time's up. Allows the provider to operate, qualified providers to operate in St. Lucie County. And again, this is under Chapter 401 of the Florida statute, and it's for any agency or company that is providing advanced life support or basic life support ambulance services. And they do go through a rigorous process of obtaining a license through the Florida Department of Health, as well as the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity from their respective county. Currently, under our ordinance, we do oversee the non-emergency wheelchair transportation, non-emergency, non-medical wheelchair and stretcher transportations. It is not something that under state statute we are required to do. Currently, we're one of a handful of counties that do that. But again, there are this type of service is something that could be provided through any other type of mass transit, such as Uber or Lyft. So part of this review of the ordinance is to take out overseeing the wheelchairs and stretcher transport and just focusing on the ambulances services, which is required by the state. Again, part of this deep dive was to repeal and replace Chapter 18, Article 3, formerly known as the Life Support Services. It will now be the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity for St. Lucie County. And the main changes that we focus on we're reducing the number of certificates or classes and certificates from 6 down to 2, which are Class A certificate, which is exclusive emergency for the St. Lucie County Fire District. So any 911 calls, any type of emergency calls are sole responsibility of the fire district. And that's something that has been in place for quite some time, and it's something that will remain in place. And then the second type of certificate will be Class B non-emergency. That's for our current private providers, which there are 5 in the county. And one thing, again, to acknowledge the fire district is currently the fire district is the only one that can do emergency room to emergency room transportation. But obviously, as you have talked tonight about growth, their calls for service have increased significantly. So that is something that will be changing is for non-emergency, emergency room to emergency room. They are going to be allowing the private providers to do that type of transportation. So that is something that basically is going to be offsetting their priority calls and giving it down to the private providers. Additionally, it will be a cycle change from a 1-year period application to a 4-year period starting in January of 2027. And the reason for that is, again, it gives enough time to ensure that when we conduct the needs assessment survey, we have enough actionable data that we can share with you to determine whether there is truly a need or not to open the application period and allow other providers to apply to the county to conduct business. And if it's going with this new change, the application period would then take turn between August 1st and August 30th, and then the needs assessment survey will most likely be done during the springtime to allow for that time and get the results back from the healthcare facilities, which are the ones that complete that needs assessment survey. Additionally, with this revision of the ordinance, we updated the fee schedule, which is it's actually number 2 in the public hearing, but it was actually under the consent agenda. Obviously, the cost to do business, it will be split in a 4-year period. So that will go up to as shown in your screen. Additionally, another thing that we're including is an annual vehicle permit fee, which is going to be a decal, and I'll show it in our next slide here. It shows basically that you're allowed to conduct business in San Lucie County. So every ambulance will be required to have that, with the exception of the fire district. They're not going to be required to have this annual vehicle permit fee. And you see the inspection fee there per vehicle. Another change was to augment the ordinance with the ability for us to conduct any type of inspection if there's any complaints. Currently, DOH does that, Department of Health does the inspections, as well as they're required by state statute to have, be DOT certified. So this will just give us another opportunity in the event there's any issues to conduct that, but does not necessarily mean that I'm going to be going out there and inspecting an ambulance per se, but it just gives us an opportunity if we have to do that. And again, as I mentioned previously, this is an example of what each ambulance vehicle permit will have. Most likely it'll be in the back of the ambulance. Location still yet to be determined, but it'll be reflective, and again, anyone could tell that whether or not that ambulance is allowed to operate in St. Lucie County. Another change is the reporting requirement. Every month they're required to submit a monthly run report, which is how many runs, whether it's advanced life support, basic life support, they have conducted. It's due by the 15th of every month. But with this new change, it just allows us to do a quarterly report, which creates a greater flexibility for the provider and also for our staff to process that in a timely manner. Another change, it was the insurance requirement. Looking at all of the counties and kind of just the industry standard, we changed the insurance requirement to $1 million for each occurrence for single living bodily injury, death, or property damage liability. Again, it's just going with the industry standards and ensuring that that provider is able to provide that service to their clients. And another change within our ordinance is currently we have the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Council. Right now it's composed of 8 members. 5 are chosen by you all, by the board. And now we're proposing to change it to 15 members, with 11 of them being voting members, to include the San Lucie County Fire District Chief, excuse me, or designee, along with all the hospitals and their ER staff or someone appointed by their CEO that represents their ER, to include the new hospital that just opened in South County. Additionally, there will be 4 non-voting members to include the Department of Health, 1 Class B provider, private provider, chosen from voting within their peers, and then the City of Port St. Lucie and the City of Fort Pierce. And with that, we recommend the board to adopt the proposed ordinance and authorize the chair to sign as approved by the county attorney. Any questions, any comments?
I have a quick question, Ron.
Yes, ma'am.
Going back to the fee schedule really quick. So where it says inspection fee per vehicle, you explained that was going to be in cases where we received a complaint and then you had to inspect
Correct.
them. So that's not going to be something that they pay in addition annually, in addition to the annual vehicle permit fee. Is that correct?
It's only going to be on a case-by-case basis,
Okay.
again, depending on if we do receive a complaint, and then obviously we're going to be working with our partners of the Department of Health to ensure that when we do conduct the inspection, is a comprehensive inspection.
Okay. And then currently, I know there's 8 members, so with that being an even number, is there a lot of conflicts with there being like 4-4 votes on things, or?
So I know Sierra can attest to that because I know she yeah.
She's the one that gets to sit in on those?
So, yes, and obviously the reason why we did it 11 is because of the majority anytime we have a voting and to ensure that we have a quorum. So that's part of the reason. I'll let Sierra elaborate more on that.
Sierra Force for the record. I cannot say in the meetings that I've attended that we've had a lot of ties, if that was the question. No, I can't say we have.
I was just curious.
Okay.
So one of the things that I do feel strongly about is I do think that one of the Class Bs, and maybe they do in every other year since right now there's 2, I do think that they should be a voting member. I really do. And, you know, for me, the justification is the hospitals are providing their own Class B service. So it's kind of like saying you guys can have a vote, but these other Class Bs, you can't have a vote. It might not be the right way to look at it, but that is sort of the way I look at it. So I would prefer to either see all of them get to be able to have that, you know, have a vote, or all the Class Bs taken off to not have a vote.
So if I may, Chair Fowler,
Absolutely.
the members are from the hospital are solely ER department members, which is different to in the hospital. Like, for example, HCA, they have their own ER and they have their own transportation. So it's completely different from the person that is sitting at the board, who's the head of the ER nurses, versus a transportation person that's in charge of that department.
And I agree, but I think the lines, it's, as we know, perception, and so without having and explaining that to 300,000 plus people, I think most people are going to look at it and kind of say, why does, again, one person get a vote and someone else not get a vote? Totally understand what you're saying, but, so, I mean, I know you guys have done a lot of work on this, and I really appreciate it. Quite frankly, they should have black eyes at this point, because I beat them up over this so much, but, and everything is great. I would just ask there to be some consideration. I do really truly think that one of the 2 Class B providers, and maybe every other year thing, they should have the ability to be a voting member.
So, Commissioner Fowler, as far as the actual providers, if you look at it, there are 5 to include with the hospitals of the Class B. As far as the Class B being they are part of the council. They're just the 4 that are non-voting, but doesn't mean that they are able to bring any issues to the table and have an open discussion during the meetings. One of the reasons why they were put that way is just to avoid any type of conflict as it comes to any items that are brought to the council during the meetings, and that they will cause them to recuse themselves, which might potentially create some additional issues down the road. So that was one of the reasons behind why we put them as ex officio non-voting members. But again, they will be bringing feedback, you know, to the table, and the discussion will be there, and will be part of that conversation within the council.
Okay. All right. So this is also a public hearing item. Is there anyone wishing to address the board on this item? Seeing no movement, come back to the board.
Like the motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. And making a motion to approve as presented? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's going to have to be me because of that voting issue, so I'm going to have to oppose that. But we are good. It's 4-1 on that. And number 2 was originally on the consent. So is this another? We can just.
This resolution does not require you to open a public comment.
Okay. So number 2 is just going to need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And with that, that brings us to our regular agenda.
Good evening again, Chair Fowler and Commissioners. This is Agenda Item 11A1. It's an incentive resolution for Monarch Pharmaceuticals. It's a local small business that's looking to expand in St. Lucie County. The Economic Development Council is here tonight. They'll begin with an overview of the expansion project, and then I will follow up with information specific to the incentive resolution.
Good evening.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, Commissioner Fowler, Commissioners, staff. My name is Katie Knight, Director of Business Development with the Economic Development Council of St. Lucie County. Here with me is Wes McCurry, or Senior Vice President. Tonight, I'm pleased to present an overview of Monarch Pharmaceuticals, Inc., a growing local manufacturer seeking support for its expansion here in our county. Monarch Pharmaceutical is an SBA-certified veteran-owned company producing made in USA over-the-counter pain relief, antifungal, and specialty care creams from its facility. They supply high-quality, affordable products to customers nationwide. The project is located in the Renaissance Business Park in the city of Fort Pierce. Monarch currently operates within a 12,800 square foot facility, and through this expansion, they will significantly enhance production capacity to meet their growing customer demand. Their business expansion overview. The company investment in St. Lucie County includes $600,000 in facility capital investment, $1.4 million in machinery and equipment, and we'll be doing 11 full-time jobs at $25.80 at 108% of our St. Lucie County average wage. On the economic impact, this expansion will generate approximately $710,000 in direct annual recurring payroll, creating ongoing economic benefits for the local community. These are high-quality jobs in a sector we aim to grow, manufacturing that diversifies our economy and strengthens our competitiveness. To support this expansion, or requests for consideration on the incentive requests are as follows. Ad valorem tax exemption at 80% for years 1 to 2, 70% for years 3 to 4, 60% for year 5, 40% year 6, and a job growth investment grant tied to the company's verified job creation and capital performance. These incentives are performance-based and align with county policy for target industry job creation and private investment. And to conclude my presentation, again, Monarch Pharmaceuticals is a target industry, and incentive aligns with the 11 new jobs, average wage of $53,664, with over $600,000 in facility investment and $1.4 million in tangible property. So thank you for your time, and if you have any questions.
Thank you, Katie. And any questions?
I just want to say, Katie, good job. Wes, better get worried.
Yeah, great job, Katie. And this is a true small business
Yes.
that I didn't even realize was operating literally in my backyard. So cool. So cool that, and scary if you think about it, that the five of us do what we do, know what we know, and we still learn things about this community every single day. This is a SBA veteran-owned business. So yeah, this is really when we talk about supporting mom and pop, small businesses, not big developers, not big boxes. This is it right here. So
I'll make a motion to approve.
I love it.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. All right, and that brings us to the end of our meeting. I do want to just give a quick shout out to two of our departments. Communications, who won multiple video awards. Let me say that correctly. One of which was actually for our county update. So great job on that, guys. And then also our solid waste department earned a Florida Recycling Foundation award. So kudos to you guys for everything that you do. We do really appreciate you. We know you work hard. We know there's never enough thanks that goes around. Quick thing that I would like you guys to know that I'd like us to put on informals for conversation. So I would like to bring back a conversation now that we have 2 new members in regards to code enforcement. You know, do we want to start changing that practice? Do we want to go proactive versus reactive? Do we maybe want to eye commercial businesses and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do? But I think it's time to have that conversation. Commissioner Clasby, you brought up about pausing impact fees for infill lots. So as part of a kind of a sister conversation, there was an item under community services for Emerald Terrace, which is up in Fort Pierce. And so basically there's a piece of property and it's Habitat has it, and they cannot get anyone that wants to build on this lot. And so in my head, again, much larger conversation bringing up about pausing the impact fees, but here you have an instance where there are not going to be any of those fees, and you still can't get anyone to buy there. So again, I've asked for that broader conversation to be added on. I think we need to take a look back at the JGIGs also, Job Growth Investment Grants. And then last thing, Commissioner Townsend, Commissioner Clasby, I think you both have brought up in the past about sort of hardening local preference. And one of the things that I suggested this week, actually, because of an item on our agenda, which was 9L8, landscape service bid. It is a Florida company, but when you look at your SunBiz, it's a registered Florida company, but everyone's up in Pennsylvania. Now, granted, for this bid, the one local bidder, I mean, is nowhere even near them. But anyway, I suggested that might be something that we can use to harden an actual true local business that's also where the directors and everyone that's part of it are actually here in Florida. So, yeah. And then the last thing is conversation about potentially adding an ex officio position to P&Z in terms of a position for someone that has unique abilities, so that we can have someone either, you know, that deals with issues every day in terms of not being able to access things like the rest of us can. I think it would be nice to have that perspective up there to speak to projects so that we can speak to that demographic. So those are all the things that I've hit staff with. So those should be coming up here in the next couple of months. And I just wanted to share that with y'all. Any other comments?
I have a comment.
Commissioner Townsend?
First, I want to, I'm sure you know about this, but I want to take the time to let the public know that we have all been excited about the airport and excited about being able to name the companies that were coming in the airlines. And due to the government shutdown, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that by the end of December we will be able to do that, because TSA was stalled during the shutdown. So I know there's a lot of people following this. I don't want them to think that we've dropped the ball and that we have done something wrong. It was done by the government shutdown. Everybody knew that it happened. And so probably by the time TSA gets everything done out there, it's probably going to be more like the end of January, February, probably, before any of that happens. Is that correct, Maite?
For TSA, yes, but for commercial service, likely March-ish would be the ideal date.
I like to keep them informed, because you're getting the calls too,
Everyone's
I'm sure.
asking,
So
yep.
I just want them to be updated that it is not because of us. We didn't have anything to do with this. It was that. And with the airport also, I don't know if Mr. Landry spoke to you yet, but it'll be coming up for some discussion. I don't know how many of you were knowledgeable about the Sprinter van that used to be on Industrial 3 at the airport. He was a gentleman that was friends with an ex-past assistant county administrator who was given free rent. He was out there and he stayed out there for multiple years without paying rent, and the airport paid his electric. He ended up leaving, finally, after years of leaving. He did own a parcel of land on US 1. Next to him, there are 2 lots between him and a business to the north. I always thought it was 1 lot, found out later it was 2. Anyways, back during COVID, he was going to buy those lots, but typical fashion of the way things have done in the past. They didn't happen, and our past airport manager, Stan Payne, was a lot of smoking mirrors and lied and said that it was a done deal. It was done. Lo and behold, to me, I'm sure Mr. Claspy is aware of this because I believe he had the same conversation with this gentleman, privately, of course, that the business to the north did not know that obviously the gentleman to the south had ever inquired about this land. And so I recently found out that the land never sold because I always assumed that Sprinter Van bought it because that's what I was told by Stan Payne. However, he did not buy it. He's been sitting there utilizing it and not paying rent. So I have asked for this to go on an informal meeting and from Maite and George to discuss this with y'all because the gentleman that owns this company to the north is interested in purchasing this land. This land was bought by grants, and if it is sold and put back on the tax roll, we will not be able to keep any of the money from it. Whatever it sells for has to go back to the FAA, which I'm okay with that. It's putting it back on the tax roll. And the company to the north is wanting to expand. So I kind of want to give you a little bit of the history. I didn't know if George and Maite had the opportunity to speak to y'all about it, but I was very involved in this. I was very involved in getting the Sprinter van out of there. On a good note, Sprinter van is doing well in his position where he's at, but if you know the history of that business and what he did in the past, he's not going to purchase this land. So I think another thing that they're going to have to look at is it going to have to go out for bid? So it probably will, because if Sprinter van is still interested in it, and to be fair, it's probably going to have to go out for a bid. So I think the conversation that needs to be had is, are we interested in selling it, putting it back on the tax roll? And I do want to brag about our tourism. I think it's very important for everybody to know that we broke the record for the history of St. Lucie County in collections of the tourist tax this year. And I wish Charlotte was still here so that she could speak on it. I want to think it was somewhere like $6.7 million taken in, which has never been collected in that capacity. Wow. And the other thing is, talk about Doge and everything. They came in at 5% under what their expense budget was. So they're going to be probably, George, returning 5% back to the general fund?
We'll be looking at their numbers, and that might be the case.
Yes. So tourism has done well.
Fantastic. They're
So-
great. Small but mighty group. Commissioner Lee?
Yes, I'd like to bring on the informal discussion about someone going to a data center and observing the sounds, vibrations. Obviously, we all have had conversations. We all have many people in our office, and the group that I was with, most of you know that I am for the data center, but they asked this real simple question: have you ever lived next to one? And obviously I haven't. I think it would be worth the expense to send some nonpartisan people up to a large data center. I did find one up in Virginia, open to anyone that's large to experience any of the vibrations or disturbances that it could bring into our county, so that we are more informed.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Lee, I've already taken care of that. I'll be flying up in February.
Beautiful.
I asked Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I had asked the folks at for Timberline to give us a comparable, data center to go visit, because at my own expense I was going to go try and visit one myself, but I haven't got an answer yet as to which, because I think this is the world's largest data center that they're proposing here, at least in the United States.
Now, I asked them that, and they said no. So I think it's one of those things on social media that has that's not quite accurate, but has gained traction, and I'm going to defer right over here to my left and make sure I'm not putting out anything
I've heard
incorrect.
the same information, that it's not the world's largest. There's much larger in Southeast Asia and other locations in the United States, so it's not here.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I mean, obviously you all are welcome to freely go at your own will to go do so, but if the board wanted to have something more on an official basis, the board could designate for a commissioner or a commissioner and said staff to coordinate a trip and go do it, and maybe reach out to the local government that's up there, also talk to some of the residents, get the feel of it, and come back. But the board could make that recommendation and make that approval, and we can bring it back as an agenda item, say in early January, for you to do so, and you could appoint one of you all or staff to go do that and bring back a report. Obviously, if you all go independently, you got to go independently and not communicate with each other about your own stuff, and don't go at the same time in the same data center independently, things of that nature. So, but you can do something of that if that's the will of the board, or you can obviously do your own thing as you're free to do so. But just make sure you're not doing it together.
Understood. And Commissioner Cosby, were you still?
Well, I didn't know if Commissioner Leet was done with his.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
Madam Chair, so I had a couple comments on this. So earlier in the meeting, I mentioned, like you had said before, about scattered infill lots. And what I mean by scattered infill, I'm not talking about a brand new subdivision of 50, 100 homes. I'm talking about the custom home builders that are out there that pick off the remaining lots in Port St. Lucie and in other places. In my mind, if you're the last house in a subdivision, while some might not think it's fair, you're really not creating as big of an impact as whenever it first got there. And in fact, I think we should be encouraging people to finish off the last house in a subdivision before going to greenfield development out west of town. So maybe at an informal, we could look or direct staff to look to see if this is even legal and possible to have a discount for scattered single-family lots, that however that's worded. But I think that we should encourage infill development rather than going out. Whenever I say infill development, again, I want to stress that I'm not talking about there's a big lot that we can fit 3,000 townhouses on. I'm talking about one single-family permit. We should do something to incentivize that, because the folks out there that are building that style of housing are struggling. Our impact fees are very high. This evening we discussed road impact fees only. Road impact fees are not the only impact fees. There's about 6 or 7 different impact fees out there that the county uses and the school board, and then you add on Port St. Lucie. I mean, in unincorporated county, you're looking closer to 20 grand in impact fees. And when you're trying to build a budget house, that's a big number, especially whenever land clearing probably costs twice that in certain lots. So these are big barriers to entry for someone to build an owner-builder house even. So I'd like to see if we can look at getting some kind of a discount for scattered infill. In addition to that, you mentioned Emerald and Fort Pierce. Well, Fort Pierce CRA, FPRA, has a moratorium on impact fees. And I've mentioned at previous public meetings that I'm also interested in the county matching that moratorium. It's not a large area. It's not an area of high development, but it would, again, market infill development in an area that's the city of Fort Pierce is targeted as an area of development. I personally would extend the offer to Port St. Lucie, but only if they put a moratorium in their CRA. I don't think they're doing that. So that's a second thing that I'd like to look at. And then something that I've been talking with staff about since I've gotten on the board, and even in public meetings, is taking a hard look. It's already been kind of mentioned at the incentives. With the Live Local Act, kind of new definitions for determining what's affordable and what's not affordable have been introduced. I do not agree with the Live Local Act's determination of what's affordable. I think it's much higher than what's affordable. But given that, that's still something that we could be forced to allow or not even given the option. So I don't want to put the numbers out there, but I think it's, could be 120% of AMI, something like that. But 120% of AMI is much different than 108% of the average county wage. In fact, that's 108% of the average county wage, I'm assuming, is much lower than the income requirements for a Live Local project. So I'd like to see some harmony in there. And what this would do, it would increase the amount that we would incentivize for an hourly wage. Right now, $28, $25, whatever it is, it might bring it up to $30. And I think the bar should be higher for what we use tax dollars to incentivize jobs with. I don't want to discourage people from coming here, but if we're going to be using tax dollars to incentivize them coming here, it ought to be higher than normal wages and much higher than just 8% higher. Let's see, you had mentioned the ex officio on the Planning and Zoning Board. I kind of agree with that. That's why the member that I put on the Planning and Zoning Board is in the industry. It might be worthwhile to kind of take a look. I think Commissioner Townsend had mentioned this at some point, but to take a look at what requirements are to sit on some of these boards. That we have kind of more commentary that's going to be more helpful legally on some things. I think they're doing a great job, but like you said, it'd be nice to have some guidance on there. Like the contractors board, you have to be a contractor to be on there because you need to understand the industry. There's some consumer positions, but yeah. And then we also had talked about just briefly here a minute ago about the airport maybe not coming in on time, and I just wanted to make sure that did the FAA's shutdown, government shutdown, have anything to do with our local county projects at the airport, or are those still on time?
They're still on time. We had some delays in terms of getting comments on like our NEPA reports and so forth, but they're back running. We've been getting comments now, so that's running smoothly. I think for the industry as a whole, because they didn't know how long that shutdown would last, as well as all the issues going on at airlines and TSA agents and so forth, they've sort of pumped the brakes. They've slowed down deliveries of planes and hiring and so forth, so they're now ramping back up.
So I just think that that's important to mention, that there's the federal government, they're slowing down some of that comment process, but as far as the stuff that's our responsibility as a county, we're still on time for that part of it. We're always beholden to the feds, but.
All right, and with that, Mr. Landry, I'll segue over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners will hold an informal meeting on Tuesday, December 9th at 9 a.m., and they will also hold a regular meeting at 6 p.m. on December 9th, same day, and trying to be considerate of the holiday, so we're having two meetings on one day, both on December 9th, here in the Commission Chambers at 2300 Virginia Avenue, and Eric will close us out with the final announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Residents are encouraged to get into the holiday spirit with the Fairgrounds Festival of Lights happening Wednesday, Thursdays, and Sundays from 6 to 9 p.m., and Fridays and Saturdays from 6 to 10 p.m. now through December 28th at the St. Lucie County Fairgrounds located at 15601 West Midway Road in Fort Pierce. In addition to the drive-through holiday light displays, this event features Santa's Village with crafts, games, a petting zoo, special movie nights, and more. Advance tickets are $10 per person, while gate admission is $12 per person. Children 3 and younger are free. This is a fundraiser for the St. Lucie County Fair Association, and the county is a sponsor. So if residents want more information, they can visit stluciecountyfair.org.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a good night.